morning, guys, and welcome back. Not one, but two meetings we have this month on our off month. And I'm excited because I'm in town. All right, Madam Attorney, is reasonable opportunity for this item needed I know we had it already, but what's the proper?
No, Mr. Chair. Reasonable opportunity has already been provided. For this special meeting, you have one item on your agenda. It's special item number 1, and there's a supplement to that item.
All right, can we go ahead and set the agenda at this time?
There are no changes to your agenda, so these are the only items before you today.
It's been moved by Commissioner Gilbert. It's been seconded by Commissioner Gonzalez. All in favor of setting the agenda, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, show the agenda hereby set. All right, so I guess we just have one item, so we're going to get right into it.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner?
just a point of personal privilege. I know we don't have a reasonable opportunity on this, but I know some members of our unions, our employees, the Miami-Dade County family are here. TWU, ASME 199, and ASME 3292, they're here. If we could just have them wave in the audience. They came to, I guess, from what I'm told by their representative, be supportive of Aetna, and they want that to be on the record.
Can you wave if that's accurate? Thank you. All right. So, and then at that point, if there's anybody in their audience from anywhere in support of the incumbent, wave as well to be equal. You want to wave for AVMED? All right, you're waving for AVMED. Everybody waving for Aetna? Waving for Aetna? Waving for AVMED? Waving for Aetna. AVMED. All right.
All the ugly girls, be quiet.
All right. All right, you've all expressed your waving in support of each. Colleagues, I'd like to begin by inviting the most recent consultant, Aon, up and kind of giving us a very brief, and the administration can approach as well if they want to give the formal introduction. Namita, if you want to give the formal introduction to the latest consultant, Aon. And I say Aon because we already heard from Gallagher in our last meeting. So this was that second opinion that we all opted for. And then Namita and to Aon, I just ask that you keep it very short, preferably under 5 minutes, but obviously I want to make sure we got all the information we need to make an educated decision. So go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Namita Upal, Chief Procurement Officer. Thank you, Chair, for holding this special meeting, and thank you, everybody, for being here. At your last board meeting on July 16, you had asked, the board gave us a directive to hire a second consultant to do an independent analysis of the information data that we received in terms of bills and the proposals and the claims and all of that data to be analyzed by independent consultant. And one question that you asked was, which company is going to be less expensive for the county? And that was the only directive. In order to do the contract quickly and also to get the consultant right away on board because of the timing constraints, we hired Aon based on their reputation, and also they have been the consultant for the state of Florida. And we engaged with Aon on this specific assignment and turned over our RFP, responses received, BAFO proposals, all of the data that we had. And the only question that we asked was, which company between AVMED and Aetna is going to be less expensive for the county? And we have today Ms. Amanda Brooks and Emily Naples from Aon Consultant and team, and they also had other people involved in the whole analysis. So I will turn it over to Emily to give her a quick background of what her role has been in the state of Florida and Aon and how they conducted the analysis. Thank you.
And Namita, real quick, just before they take over, just to be clear because of something you just said. So the reason that you only asked Aon to evaluate pricing, obviously that came as a request from this board, but in addition to that, you asked them just for pricing because our plans and the employees' plans is not jeopardized at all if we switch, right?
That is correct, because the county is self-insured. We are responsible for designing our own plan. And as a part of the RFP, we kept the plan same. Nothing is going to change. I know the plans are part of the rates and the things are part of the union agreements. So nothing from that perspective is changing. So the only, whether it's AVMED or Aetna. However, we do get more advantages going to Aetna, but I'm not going to go in there right now. the question is, okay, based on the plans that we have today, which company is going to be less expensive for the county, considering we are responsible for paying the bills? Let's say for medical is $1.2 billion approximately. So that's why we focused on the pricing for the county.
And Namara, to be clear, when you say nothing is going to change, meaning our plans, our coverage won't change, but of course, depending on the doctor would have to take that health insurance, right?
Yes.
That's the only thing that would really change. You have to make sure your doctor would accept one or the other, or both.
Well, we have analysis done. When you match today, based on the doctors and the network that we had, AVMED's match is about 89% and Aetna is 99%, which means that you have more match with Aetna's network than AVMED.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Thank you.
You may proceed.
Hi, thank you everyone. Good morning. My name is Emily Naples. I am an assistant vice president with Aon, and I am also a lead consultant. I've been working with Aon for 9 years, and for that time I've been supporting public sector clients. So I will pass it off to Amanda Brooke-Cross, who is our lead actuary, and she will actually walk us through the report that was done.
Thank you, Emily. Good to meet you.
Good morning, everyone. So to give you a little bit more background about myself, as Emily mentioned, I am a lead actuary. I oversee all, specifically Florida public sector clients for Aon's business. So I'm very familiar with county governments, school districts, cities, have a lot of experience with RFP process as well. So we were contracted with Miami-Dade County after your all's last meeting on July 21st. We received the data on July 22nd, which all of that data that we received was everything related essentially to the RFP. So that included the initial proposal, the repriced data claims, the BAFO proposal, the original RFP with any addendums. We received lots and all the typical information we would receive in an RFP. So with that contract, we were also we were able to speak with each of the vendors. We spoke with each of them one time to be able to ask questions. And we did that on July 24th. And I believe all of you should have a copy of the memo that we provided. And we provided that to Chief Edwards on July 29th of our findings. So I'm also happy to go as deep as you all would like me to go in analysis, but I will keep things high level initially to really get across the main points, but happy to answer, of course, any questions that you all may have of our analysis. Typically what we would do, and this is not just what we did for you all, but also what we would do for any public sector entity, is to take the repriced claims from both of the vendors. So when we received the repriced claims, essentially what that means is that each of the vendors were given 12 months. Now the definition of month kind of varies when you're talking about claims versus the regular everyday world of a month. So we received claims for 2023 from January through December. Now that included incurred and paid claims in 23. What that means is that it did not include claims that maybe were incurred in 22 and paid in 23, or maybe incurred in 23 and paid in 24 or after. So it's claims that were incurred and paid within those 12 months, not completed claims. So, but it's very clear to us that both vendors received the exact same data information. They took that and they repriced that according to their discounts and then provided back to the county what their repriced claims were. So then we took those repriced claims, looked at the allowed versus the billed amount, the billed charges, and essentially backed into what those discount rates would be. It was the process that we went through on the claims. And to be very clear as well, the directive that we received from the county was to review the medical claims. So when I'm referring to claims, our analysis was based on the medical claims. And then we also looked at the fees as well. But the key driver to all of our analysis was really the medical claims specifically. And so our end result, before I get to any details on the chart, is that based on the discounts, and the repriced claims, that Aetna's medical claims, along with when we aggregated the fees in there as well, which is a significantly smaller portion, Aetna's total was $45.5 million less than AVMED's total of medical claims and fees. We did look at the discounts that were provided. So there's a little bit of a difference between AVMED and Aetna as far as the process. So for AVMED, their discounts are by plan per their indication of networks per plan. Whereas for Aetna, it is more broad than being specific by plan. But the process was no different. They literally, there were, I don't know the exact number, but millions of rows of individual claims that were repriced regardless of that. And they went according to their discounts for that specific claim and provider associated with that claim. And also what is typical, I would say, is that, and it's not just due to time in the situation, but in general, being able to go back and audit millions of claims. So we are not auditors. We are taking the repriced claims and performing that analysis. So I will not walk through the details of the chart in the memo unless anyone requests that. I do want to mention a couple of things that I think are important to mention just to make sure things are very clear about how we did the analysis. So for Aetna, not being the incumbent carrier, had a little less than $6 million of initially excluded claims. But this is very common when it comes to a non-incumbent carrier when we are doing an RFP process. And the reason is because between different vendors, there could be different codes that just cannot be mapped in the same way. So it is very typical. I can say, I can't think of one of RFPs, and I've done many public sector RFPs where the non-incumbent doesn't have some portion of excluded claims. And again, it was close to $6 million, but we did not completely exclude that. We included those excluded claims at an average estimated discount rate of 68%. So we included just over $4 million of that $6 million in our repricing. So when you see the totals, it's including those excluded claims as well. Because again, the reasoning and for doing the repricing and that being the basis for the analysis is so that you are doing everything apples to apples. You're not relying on any assumptions from either the incumbent or any other vendors. It is very straightforward. They're starting with the same data point, repricing it, and moving forward. So there are no assumptions in there, and we are able to really have the most equitable and apples to apples comparison when we're comparing the vendors in that situation. And so I believe that is everything that I wanted to provide to you initially. So happy to answer questions now or later, whatever your preference is.
Thank you very much. And yeah, I'm gonna kind of set the tone here, but real quick, just on the last thing you mentioned, just to be clear. So on the excluded claims
Yes.
that you added the 67% or whatnot, which is
68%.
68%, which is about $4 million.
Yes.
So worst case scenario on your analysis, not, I mean, I'm sure that it could be debated or people here may debate it today, but worst case scenario, if you just discount the entire 6 million, 4 million, which is what you added, it just, your savings goes from 44 million to 40 million.
Exactly. Yes. Yes. And that's a great point. We looked at a lot of different things from different angles that if this had been this or that, any of the things that were not perfectly clear to us, we did a lot of sensitivity testing around any of those types of assumptions. Nothing that we tested even remotely came close to changing this story essentially whatsoever of that Aetna was clearly a significantly more savings than the AVMED.
Okay. And did you, and maybe the administration could answer, and I asked this again yesterday in my briefing, but I want to put it on the record. Did you review the contracts at all? No, just the pricing structure?
No, our contract was just purely around the medical claims and the fees and completing that analysis.
So for me, and I'm going to obviously give an opportunity for each company to come up and speak for a few minutes. and present if they need to, and obviously my colleagues to ask any questions that they may have. But to the administration, and I asked this question yesterday in a briefing that we had, is contractually, are we holding either company, by the way, accountable for the pricing that, the savings, right? I.e. the pricing, but the savings that they are presenting to us and agreeing to per that repricing structure? The answer given to me, by the way, was yes, but I need to hear it on the record from the administration.
Through the chair, Carla Denise Edwards, Chief Administrative Officer. The answer to the question is yes. The way that the contract is constructed is that we actually are looking for the guarantees for the savings and the provision of services that they're offering. So yes.
All right, with that, colleagues, my intent is to recognize each company, both AVMED and Aetna, for about 3 to 5 minutes each. And then if we want to ask questions, we can. But if somebody wants to jump in now and ask questions of the consultant, you may do so. This is the only item on the agenda, so seeing that no one's jumping up to it right this second, thank you. Stand by. We may have questions for you. Thank you for the brief. Oh, yes, Senator Garcia.
Thank you. For the consultant, you said that with the Aetna, it's more broad when it comes to the discount. You said is it per provider? Is it per network? How is that realized?
Right. So, and Aetna, I'm sure will probably speak to this more broadly when they are speaking, but they have a national network. So one example would be if you were in California, Aetna has a national network there. And I'm not familiar with AVMED, so I cannot speak on behalf of AVMED in that particular circumstance, but Aetna does have a national network you would be able to utilize at no additional cost. That's part of what they included here.
And on the capitation, we talked about, this is a third-party administrator, fee for service, I would assume. It's not a capitated rate. You said they're able to negotiate better discounts. Are they able to negotiate better discounts? Here, I'm talking about Miami-Dade County. I understand the global network, but are those discounts, are they able to negotiate better discounts because of the economies of scale? Or why? Because it's a fee-for-service contract, correct? Fee-for-service meaning that they provide the services, they bill the county pays for it. Are those fee-for-service bills discounted already when they come to the county?
Right. So for both vendors, you would be paying a per employee or per month, per member or per employee per month charge, regardless of what claims occurred or any, completely independent of the claims. So the discounts are purely based on their negotiated rates with their providers, whether it's an ER, physician, hospital, all of that is separate. So all of those discounts are based on what they have negotiated. So they would be able to speak best at what those discounts were. But if you have questions about the capitation, I could also explain a little bit more on the capitation, because you will note in our memo where you see a capitated services row for AVMED, but you don't see that under Aetna. The reason is because, and this is one of the questions that we asked when we had the individual calls with the vendors, is that for AVMED, so what capitation is something, this example is not particular to either vendor. This is just an example. Let's say behavioral health was a capitated service. So that would mean that per member per month or per employee per month, they would charge you a fee regardless of the utilization of behavioral health. And you would not see any claims coming through your claims. You're just paying that fee regardless of the utilization. So we include a capitation services here under AVMED based on what they provided in their responses to the RFP of what they do capitate. For Aetna, we didn't receive anything, and we confirmed with them on that call that they do not capitate any of those services. So that doesn't mean that they're excluded here. They are included here, but they are in that top row of the repriced claims. Again, to keep that apples to apples comparison there.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Regalado.
Yeah, just as a point of clarification moving forward, I think it would help everyone if we don't use the word claim, because it's not really a claim in the legal sense. It's just a bill. We are self-insured. So what happens is we go to get a service, and that bill is sent to the provider. Because I think when you use, and I understand that in the industry you use claims, but to the normal person, a claim is when something was not covered right? And then you challenge it. So can we just use like bills? Because I think there's a difference between claims and bills. We are self-insured. So when we talk about a negotiated rate, what we're saying is you go to the doctor, the bill gets sent to the county, and then the provider negotiates the amount of that bill that's going to be
Ahead of time.
paid ahead of time, right? So I think it would just give a little bit of clarity to this, because from someone looking in, legally you would say, well, claims, like how do you challenge the claims and what percentage of the claims are you paying and who pays the difference of the part of the claim that you're not paid. So I just think that's like a different vibe.
They're all approved.
Yeah, they're all approved, right? So just,
Yes.
it's really just a bill, right? That is getting sent.
Yes.
So I think that that's important. In terms of your analysis, what was different from your analysis and Gallagher's analysis? Because obviously that's going to come up. So I just want to know, kind of from a methodology perspective, what methodology did you all use? And was there a difference from the Gallagher one? Did you get more information, same information, just to clarify the point?
So to our knowledge, we did receive the same information. However, it was very important in the communication from the county that our analysis was an independent analysis in order to not know what Gallagher had done in their analysis, so that they could have two separate independent analyses to compare. So I cannot speak to the differences between us and Gallagher. I can only speak to the Aon analysis.
Okay, but I just want that to be clear. So you made an independent analysis without looking at the Gallagher outcomes?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, stand by.
Yes.
I'm going to call up, no particular, in alphabetical order. I'm going to call up Aetna. Is Aetna here? All right. And then obviously, this is important enough that we held a meeting just for this one topic and this one item. But that said, try to keep it,
Good morning,
can we
Chair.
keep it to about 5 minutes max?
Okay, good morning, Chair, Vice Chair. We have a presentation if you'd like to see it.
Yes, please
We
give
will
it to the
hand
sergeant.
To the sergeant, and there is a USB. Oh,
Does the administration have, does tech IT have it? Is it on the, is it loaded? It's on? Okay, it's on. We got it. Oh no, this is Thrive 305. This is. Okay, I guess it's.
Good morning, and thank you for allowing us to be here today. You have a very important decision to make, and we know this decision can be transformative, which is where we are today. So to put it into perspective, why Aetna? We're not just a
Sorry.
health plan.
Sorry, and you may have done this and I may have spaced out. Can you introduce yourself properly and who's with you?
Kathy Aguirre, I am Vice President of Client Management for the Public and Labor Division for the Southeast, and a local resident. John Cantillo is our Financial Director of Underwriting. Renthia Jackson is our Vice President of Client Management. And Dr. Washington is the doctor representing us. He is here to answer any questions specific to clinical. Okay, so thank you. So one of the things I want to put into perspective is that we will be your strategic partner, not just a health plan. We cover over 27 million medical members nationwide and 2 million members in the Florida market. We bring unmatched scale. We bring economies of scale. We bring purchasing power, which is how we can do it, right? We've been around for 173 years. We've been serving Miami-Dade for many, many years. I'll put it into perspective. State of Florida has been a customer of ours for quite some time. They procure a little differently by county. In January of 24, they went through this process, selected Aetna to replace AVMED based on the analysis they did, which was very similar to what you did today. We also serve many of your neighboring hospitals, like University of Miami, like Baptist Hospital, like Tenet, HCA, Mount Sinai. Their employees have Aetna as their insurance. So your own hospital systems have elected Aetna to serve their employees. And we have others like FOP, Broward Schools, and I can name many, many. But at the end of the day, what we're trying to show here is the power and strength, the purchasing power, more employees. We have 25,000 employees, more families to serve, more ability to innovate and save money. Next slide. I want to focus on, just for a second, and the only number I want to focus on, this came straight from the RFP, is experience. We are managing over 14 million self-insured customers, while the competition is managing 83. Next slide. So there's been a lot of conversation and narratives about the repricing. You heard from our the consultants a few minutes ago. Repricing is the standard that is used in the industry. So we get a file of the bills that were submitted, and those bills are sent to us. The incumbent has to go through the same process because their discounts may have changed, right? We run those through the system, and these were the results. 71.4, rounded up 71.5, AVMED, what you see on the screen today. So that is saying, based on the current utilization that was put in the RFP, here's the visual, right? Here are the results. So I'm sure you're asking, well, how can we do 73? Well, we have a custom discount that we secured, and we've shared that in the RFP with one of the largest providers here. One of your top systems has given us a discount further than what we had it. So that brings us to that number for your utilization patterns. There is dollars at risk. We've talked about that. I'll move to the next slide. I want to talk about numbers and how we came up with projections, but I'd like our finance person to share that.
Sure. Good morning. To talk about how we arrived at a projection. So that was the second part of information that was provided in the bid. It was a projected projected spend. So I want to be transparent on how we did it. We heard how the repricing exercise, how it was done by 2 independent consultants, but no one was ever really talked about how the spend was arrived at. So that's what I'm going to do. We looked at 2 years of actual spend with the county. $369 million, that's medical and capitation, it excludes pharmacy, and your cost went up to $421 million in 24. 14% increase in spend, medical spend in 2014. So we were asked to project to 26. So we have to assume what's going to happen in 25. We don't have that information. So we assume that 25 is going to raise or increase at the same spend level that your incumbent has done already, which is 14%. So we assume that for 2025, your cost would rise to essentially $480 million. And then from there, what's the value that Aetna offers? 5% increase over your 25 number. Now, the weakness there is we don't know what 25 is. But our commitment is that your cost for 2026 will be no more than 5% over your 25.
All right, that's important that you brought that up, because that's actually been my question all along.
Yeah, next slide.
And just, I guess, though, to kind of finalize it, if you go back to that previous slide, it was a stark comparison to the other projection.
I want all the information, and the 5 minutes are up, but I do want to get all the information. More or less, how much time is left on the...
Oh, if you give us 2 more minutes, I think everything else is in the package. We're prepared for transition. But the next slide, I think, is important,
Prepared
too.
to afford the incumbent the same extent.
Yes.
Time, of course.
So from a discount perspective, because there's a lot of narrative about that, we are confident that we will meet or exceed that. Our top 20 customers in this geography are at a 73. Miami FOP, 75%, school board, 75%, and state of Florida, 73. So these are achieved today actual. Remember, we've been here for a long time. So what is AVMED achieving today is an important question. Why did the RFP, the repricing, come in at 65.6? What has changed? So yes, there's a guarantee on the table of 73. All I can say is we're achieving it today. And in closing, I'd like Renthia to close.
Okay, so I know change is huge, change is big, and healthcare is personal. We just want to ensure you, we're not starting to get ready for you, we're ready for you. We've prepared for your members. We've set up an open enrollment hotline for members to call should we be fortunate enough to secure your business. We've set up transition of care so that anyone who's in active treatment will continue to get their treatment, will not be disrupted. We've set up a mailbox. So if you have a doctor that you're seeing today in that 1%, actually less than 1%, we will reach out to that provider. We've already started. We have the file. We've reached out to these doctors, but we've provided an avenue for your members to contact us. We will hold your hand. We will make sure your members are secure, that they have a smooth transition through this process. We will be on site, we will make ourselves available, and we will partner with you to make sure your members get what they need. We have an expansive network. Your students who are seeing providers outside of South Florida will be able to tap into a provider without having to do the rigorous process of signing up for it. I think what you have today is called away from home. It's a national network. They don't need to do any more other than show up to the doctor with their ID card. So I just want you to know, you can be reassured that we're not going to have to prepare for you. We're prepared for you. We've started and we're ready. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And stand by. We may have questions for you guys, but I'm going to call up the incumbent provider now.
Thank you.
And then hopefully my colleagues will hold all their questions till we hear from both companies. And we could always call them back up if it's specific to just one. AVMED, if you want to approach, whoever's going to be presenting for AVMED. And of course, introduce yourself and tell me who you are. And you have 7 minutes, which is what I just provided. So,
good morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners, and I believe we also have a presentation. I'm not sure if that's
and it's up.
ready to be queued up. Thank you.
46 years.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. Mike Llorente with LSN Law on behalf of AVMED, and I'm here with the entire AVMED leadership team, including the folks standing behind me, Colin Drozdowski, President of Centera, the parent company, Stacy Fuqua, the President of AVMED, Frankie Izquierdo, the Vice President of Provider Network, Candy Sickle, Vice President of Sales, and Eric Johnson, standing beside me, the Chief Actuary. Commissioners, I've been through hundreds of procurements, and I can tell you that vendors are very thoughtful and deliberate about what they put into a price proposal. And the reason is that once you submit your numbers, the vendor cannot change them. And the government certainly cannot change them for the vendor, except here, except for the largest contract in the history of Miami-Dade County, $4 billion over 7 years. The administration here is not only asking you to terminate a $4 billion procurement that was won by our client, AVMED, but they're asking you to ignore the prices supplied by the proposers and to swap them out for prices supplied by a consultant. Give you a little context. $503 million, this is what Aetna said in its price proposal the county would pay under Aetna's network in paid medical claims 2026. This number is far higher than AVMED's, but it's the number Aetna chose to be scored on. And they based this number on a claims repricing exercise where they repriced 1.35 million claims from 2023, and this is the number they arrived at. 345 million, this is what Gallagher said the county would pay on an annualized basis using Aetna's network. Once again, Gallagher based its analysis on the same repriced claims that Aetna used for its analysis, but the numbers are $157 million apart. In a normal world, the county and Gallagher would see these are very different numbers and try to reconcile them and figure out what went wrong. But instead, the county swapped out the prices in the price forms. The price form in the RFP specifically said, those are the numbers you will be judged by. County swapped out the numbers, and suddenly Aetna became the lowest price proposer, saving $40, $50, $60 million a year. Setting aside the fact that this price swap exercise was prohibited under the rules of the RFP, it's worth considering whether the price projections are reasonable. And I think it's also worth considering, in light of the prior testimony, whether our estimated discount rate of 65%, which came up repeatedly, is reasonable. I think you will hear from Chief Actuary Eric Johnson that it is not. For the rest of the presentation, however, I fear we're going to need a little more brain power, so I'll turn it over to Eric Johnson, who's our Chief Actuary, who, in addition to having a PhD in nuclear physics, was Chief Actuary and Deputy Commissioner for the Florida Office of Insurance Regulation. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, thank you for letting us be here today. As Mike said, I'm Eric Johnson, Chief Actuary for AVMED Health Plans. And as he laid out, we have significant concerns about the reliability of what has been presented to you in the financial information for this RFP. And I think what you'll see is when you look at the analysis that we will walk through today, they do not pass the level of scrutiny necessary for a $4 billion procurement. And that's something I'll plan to show as we move through the slides here. So what we have, and I think that it's important to call out that there is a history here with AVMED, and we know how the county has performed, and we are able to see what that historical run rate looks like. And what I'm showing here is the last 4 years of history, and as you can see, when you look at the run rate, the projected claims fall around $440 million for 2026. A reasonable range, probably $420 to $460 million, looking at a variance from that based on things that change over time. When you add AVMED to this slide in the yellow dot, yellow circle, you'll see that we're reasonably close to that range. We're able to project claims based on what we know about the county, what we know about our contracts, and show that we think that is a reasonable cost at $426 million for your medical costs. When you add Aetna to this slide, the same cannot be said of them. What they are providing you is not reasonable. There are two numbers here, one provided by Aetna themselves at $503 million, one provided by Gallagher based on the analysis that they did of the information that Aetna presented to the county. And that shows a cost of $345 million. Now, as you absorb this, I think there's three things that should jump off the page. The first being that neither Aetna nor
Mr. Chairman,
Gallagher's
just one second. Could you raise the podium? Because you're taller than Lorente. And yeah, you're not.
But your renta has better hair.
Those are plugs. No, I'm joking.
Arguable. Thank you.
You have an extra 10 seconds.
So as I was pointing out, I think that what should jump off the page that you hear is that neither Aetna and his own projection of 503 nor Gallagher's and the administration's projection of 345 million is reasonable relative to history. The second thing that should jump out at you is that if Gallagher's number were correct and 345 million were the actual cost that they think they can achieve in 2026, that would unwind 4 years of medical inflation and take you back to 2022 levels of spend. That is completely unreasonable in our industry and would be unprecedented to be able to achieve something like that. The third thing that I would call out here is the gap between the two. Mr. Llorente had pointed this out. It's a $157 million difference. Using the same information, the same submitted claims data that came from Aetna, the consultant and Aetna's own team arrived at points that are $157 million apart. These facts should render this analysis useless. And I think when you look at the variance that exists among the information for Aetna, it should give you significant pause in using it to award a $4 billion contract. So in closing, what I think I want to highlight for you is that AVMED knows its business. We know what we pay providers, we know our contracts, we know the county's employees. We've been doing this for 46 years, and we think the cost will be around $426 million. That's what we told you in the proposal. We stand by that. Aetna knows its business. They know its contracts. They are telling you it will cost $503 million next year, $70 million higher than what we're telling you. Yet they're espousing that they are going to save you $40 million. The only way that can make sense is if you trust what Gallagher is telling you at $345 million. And as I pointed out in the prior slide, that is not reasonable, it is not reliable, and it cannot be trusted to make this large of a decision.
Thank you. Oh, go ahead, go ahead.
One more thought, yeah, thank you. So just the last thing I would close with is that if that variance is true and you expect to see 345 million and you don't achieve it, 157 million annualized over the life of this contract is a $1.1 billion mistake. So I think in light of that, I would urge you to use caution, reflect on what's been provided. Do not accept the recommendation of a clearly rushed and flawed procurement. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. And I'm sure we're going to have some questions up here, so stand by. Feel free to take a seat, but we'll be calling you up. So, very, very good presentation by both companies, so thank you. And again, that last bit that you just stated is kind of like where I've been and why we're here today, why we got a second opinion. And I think the difficulty for me, and perhaps for some of my colleagues, maybe not, is that I'd venture to say, without speaking ill, that we're not, I mean, maybe some of us are, I don't know. I'm not a healthcare expert for sure myself, right? So I have to rely on, I mean, maybe Senator Garcia is a healthcare expert, but I'm not, certainly not in the insurance portion. But so we have to rely on consultants and the information provided to us. And trust me, I've drilled both consultants. I think the chief can attest to that, and the administration overall can. And I've asked questions that I didn't even, I know more about healthcare now than I probably should. But that said, it's still, even in this moment, it's a very difficult decision to make, because we don't want to make a $1.1 billion mistake. We don't. Nobody on this dais wants to make a $1.1 billion mistake. Especially in a year and a time when we have a very large budget deficit. So with that, I'm going to look to my colleagues and see, okay. I got two so far, but I'm sure everybody's going to speak at some point. I'm gonna break from my two. These are like two total opposites, I think. So I'm gonna start with Senator Garcia and and kind of work this way, if that's okay, Commissioner.
The only thing I was gonna ask, just a point of privilege. I know there's some constitutionals here. Are they gonna weigh in at any point? Are they just gonna raise their hands?
If somebody has questions for them, I'm more than obviously happy to recognize them. I didn't see any constitutionals here. If not, I usually recognize them.
They were here. There was a few of them here earlier. I think.
I usually recognize when I see them.
Oh, there we go.
Where? Somebody's here?
Yeah. So
Who's here?
my dad was here a second.
Oh. Well,
You're right there.
Property appraiser.
property appraiser Regalado, welcome to the chamber.
I saw him this morning.
I think.
Tax collector was here.
Tax collector was also here.
Okay, so here's, look,
Did they send
of
any
course,
letters? Is the only like are they weighing in? Are
I got a letter from the sheriff. I did get a letter I don't know if it was yesterday or today, but I got a letter from the sheriff supporting Aetna, saying she supports Aetna. Is that right? Yes. So I did get a letter from the sheriff. I have not seen a letter from any of the other constitutionals, but please make sure that we don't have, or if we do have, no, I'm being told no. But of course, I'd afford them the opportunity to at least weigh in a minute or two, given that they have their individual offices and are elected officials as well. With that, Senator Garcia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I think I really appreciate the presentations. I'll tell you this, healthcare and insurance are quite different. We all think and we use healthcare and insurance interchangeably, and they're really not. The business of insurance is quite different and quite complicated, especially when we talk about dealing with claims or bills as it relates to the providers and to entities like us in Miami-Dade County. When we look at Miami-Dade County, and I'm glad we mentioned that it's a self-insured plan, and self-insured plans are usually what they have in the school board. School boards is a self-insured plan as well. And usually what happens is that you get a health plan that comes in as a third-party administrator or TPA, and they manage the claims or the bills for that entity. And yes, that's usually the case. And when we talk about capitated services are on a per member per month basis, or how the consultant said, a per member per employee basis, and those are separated out from the actual claim process. But when we look at the experience here, first of all, AVMED has done a phenomenal job for Miami-Dade County for many years. They've been with us for 45 years. They've done a great job. There's nothing to take away from the ability which you all have been able to do, and we thank you for the work that you've done and for making sure you provide a quality health insurance for our employees. But when we look at the proposal before us, we did get a third party, actually Aon, to verify some of the numbers, and they did verify that there is a $45 million savings. I think the $45 million savings is a little bit less than what is actually coming out to before us. And the reason that money is able to be actualized is because of the network that they have. They're able to negotiate better contracts because of the robust nature of their network. Their network is going to be a lot more extensive than the network that AVMED has. And based on, we look at all of us here, we look at the numbers, and for me, it's more on the network accessibility for our employees as opposed to just what is the cost savings for us. And seeing the experience that Aetna's had throughout the state and throughout the nation, but more so locally down here, I do believe that Aetna will be able to save the county based on the economies of scale of their network. And this is why they're able to negotiate some of these rates, better rates for the county. And with that, and I don't believe that it'll be a $1 billion mistake. I think I understand where the numbers are coming from based on the presentation that AVMED made, but I really do believe that we have, using the Gallagher and Aon experience, Aon was just looking at just the pricing, but I do, I'm not the biggest fan of the consultants sometimes because they kind of pick their favorites sometimes, Yeah, so anyway, but not necessarily an expert, just been in the field for quite some time. So with that, Mr. Chairman, based on the presentations that we've heard, based on the recommendation of the administration, and based on Aetna's ability to have a much robust network. However, I do recognize, I do caution anyone that says it's going to be a seamless transition. It's not going to be seamless. It's never seamless when you have these types of changeover from one provider to another provider. It's never going to be seamless. There is going to be some hiccups, but based on the number of employees and consultants that Aetna is going to be bringing on board to ensure that it's as seamless as possible or minimize the number of hiccups, I feel fairly comfortable recommending going with the administration's recommendation of recommending Aetna. So I will move the item to recommend Aetna as the provider of insurance for Miami-Dade County employees.
Well, that was fast. Did not see that coming so fast, but okay, so we do have a motion. We have a second to follow the administration's recommendation, waive, I guess, needs a majority vote, I guess, a supermajority, and go with Aetna. Okay, so we have a motion, we have a second. That said, I want to take a second and recognize that I did see them walk in now. Our property appraiser, Tomás Regalado, welcome to the chamber. Wave. And our clerk and comptroller, I saw him, Juan Fernandez Barquin. I think he is in the corner. But I did see him walk in as well. So welcome to their chamber. And real quick, without necessarily coming up to the podium right now, unless somebody has questions at some point, is Aetna, raise your hand. Meaning the clerk and the property appraiser, do you have a position? Do you have a preference? AVMED? Or Aetna? Aetna? AVMED. Aetna. All right. So they would prefer Aetna, and if they want to say something, of course, just wing me down. You don't have to, but if you want to say something, wing me down, and of course, I'll give you a couple minutes to speak. You would? Okay. Then come on down. Come on down. The price is right. And you are a elected official that will have to respond to your staff as well. So it is important to hear from you. And of course, property appraiser Regalado, if you wish to say a few words, you're welcome to as well. Go ahead. For all the new faces today, go ahead and introduce yourself one more time.
Morning. Juan Fernandez Barquin. Do I need to list my address, Mr. Chair?
I think you're good. I think we know it's the court. Yeah, what is it?
Clerk of the Court and Comptroller. Thank you all. Good morning. Thank you very much for this opportunity. I'm in favor of whatever has the best cost-benefit analysis, and from my understanding, that's Aetna, and that's why. So, thank you very much.
Thank you, Clerk.
Thank you.
And Comptroller. Property Appraiser Regalado,
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Tomas Regalado, Property Appraisal, Miami-Dade County. The address the same as yours here. And the reason I came is because one of the main concerns of the employees is health insurance. We've been following your actions and studies, and I want to lend my support to Aetna for the benefit of our employees. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Regalado. Okay, so colleagues, we have those are the only two constitutionals I see in the room. Again, the sheriff did send a letter in support of Aetna, but those are the two that I see physically here today. So with that, colleagues, we have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion on the motion? Any discussion on the motion? Okay, go ahead, Commissioner so we have a motion, we have a second to go with Aetna. You're recognized, Commissioner Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And, I want to start by saying thank you to the chairman of the Miami-Dade County Commission for his leadership on this, because I do feel that a lot of this could have been avoided had things been handled a little differently. And I don't think that this is specifically on certain people. I want to publicly thank NAMIDA for working with my team and answering all the questions, very hard questions that we threw at her. I want to thank Aetna's team, and I want to thank AVMED's team for meeting with me personally and going through some of the concerns that I had. Because at the end of the day, I want every employee in Miami-Dade County to know, I don't speak for my colleagues, but I will tell you this, everybody up here is fighting for you. And what we want is what's best for the employees of Miami-Dade County. And the chairman made an amazing point. And that point is that we need to do what's cost efficient. But we will not do what's cost efficient if it's going to affect the health and well-being of the employees of Miami-Dade County. It needs to make sense, and it needs to be fiscally responsible at the same time. And with that, the reason I bring up the process is because I've gotten a lot of phone calls where folks are panicking. And that's what upsets me. That's why I 4-day ruled this. I am not in the habit of 4-day ruling things. I try to never use it, as I know that most of my colleagues try to not use it as well. But the reason I 4-day ruled it is because there was a lot of unease when you're talking about something that is so important. And what we're talking about is the health and well-being of the family members and the employees of Miami-Dade County. All employees give something. They give their lives to the county. Some employees, like Etchi, give it all. And I want specifically all of the police officers that called me, thank you. I can tell you that the PBA and the sheriff were fighting diligently for you. And everybody up here is as well. And so I'm going to ask a lot of questions because, to the chairman's point, we need to be transparent. Right now, there's a lack of trust as far as the employees are concerned. And I want all the employees to know that what we're going to decide today is in your best interest. At least I can tell you I am going to make a decision based on what's best for you with the presentations that we get. And I'm going to ask all these tough questions because I want you to hear the answers that I heard. And I want assurances from the administration. And so to everybody that has called me and said, hey, I don't trust this and I don't trust that and people are lying, before I start asking my questions, I'm going to direct everybody to understand 2 rules that I know for a fact every single person that comes up to this podium governs themselves under these 2 rules because they are law. I'm going to cite to Florida Statute 83706, which provides that whoever knowingly makes a false statement in writing with the intent to mislead a public servant in the performance of his or her official duty shall be guilty of a misdemeanor of the 2nd degree. Everybody that speaks up here takes that seriously. The The second one comes from the Citizens Bill of Rights in the Miami-Dade Home Rule Charter, which provides that no county or municipal official or employee shall knowingly furnish false information on any public matter, nor knowingly omit significant facts when giving requested information to members of the public. Nobody out up here is going to lie. And if they do, there's going to be consequences. So rest assured, you're going to get the same presentation that we got, and at least me, I know I speak for myself, but I know the sentiment of my colleagues. We're trying to make the best decision for the employees, and we're trying to make the best decision for the residents of Miami-Dade County. So with that, if I could get Namada to come up, or somebody from the administration.
Through the chair. Yep. I'd like for Namada and George to be available. I don't know the nature of your questions, but if the two of them could be available at the podium, I think that would be helpful. I will also do my best to support you, Commissioner, in getting the clarity that you need. It's a very important decision.
Thank you so much.
Namada, to the extent that the commissioner has questions, you recognize from flowing conversation.
Thank you, Namada, and feel free to answer whoever has the answer, if that's okay with the chair. A lot of folks are very concerned about this bid waiver. Can you please explain why there is a so-called bid waiver happening in the situation where we're dealing with health?
Definitely. Thank you, Commissioner, for the question. I'm going to try my best to explain it simple. We put out an RFP. We got 2 proposals. And after the selection committee rated and ranked those proposals, they ranked Aetna number 1, AVMED number 2. No doubt about it. Selection committee was very passionate about Aetna was ranked number 1. The rules adopted by the board also include local preference, which states that if the top-ranked company is not local, in other words, they don't qualify for local preference per the board-adopted rules, and there is a company within 5% of that total points of the top one, that local company should be given a chance to negotiate. It doesn't say they should be given a contract. It says they should be given a chance to negotiate first. So, in the spirit of that local preference, once we looked at the results of the selection committee, we already had the analysis from Gallagher. The delta between the cost saving delta between 2 firms was very high. The options were, we negotiate with AVMED, number 1, in pursuit of local preference. And if we can reach an agreement, good. If we cannot reach an agreement, we would go to number 2. Now, there are different ways to negotiate. I could do traditional negotiation back and forth, sit down and waste my days. Or I could do best and final offer. That's a tool in my bucket. I could do better offers. I personally met with the chair and discussed all these options on June 26th. And we allowed AVMED to give us the best and final offer. And the reason it became a bid waiver is because instead of me going in the sequence of going to AVMED, getting their best and final offer, looking at that best and final offer, and then declaring an impasse and going back to Aetna and getting their best and final offer, all I did was I did it in parallel. I believe it's a technicality based on the rules we have. I think the evaluation was done in a competitive manner. The negotiation was done in a competitive manner. The only difference is instead of going in sequence of AVMED, give me your best and final. If it's great, we can reach an agreement. If it's not great, declaring an impasse, going to the second one, which is Aetna. I did it in parallel and asked both companies to give it to me at the same time. And that is why the county attorney has opined that this is a bid waiver.
Thank you, Namada. And so, in my personal opinion, I feel like this should have been done with more time. Do you did you have any conversations with any of the providers prior to when the bid went out? Did you have any conversations with any of the providers as far as, hey, maybe we should start negotiating this, and why such a late date? Because that's what's really bothering me, and I feel like it's bothering a lot of the employees.
Absolutely. I personally did not, but I do know Chief and her office and HR PIOD were meeting with AVMED for a long time, and I would defer to Chief to negotiate an extension with AVMED's contract. And I'll turn it over to Chief to answer.
You're recognized.
Yeah, thank you through the chair, through the vice chair. I want to make sure too that Namada's first statement is clear. Based on our understanding, when you do a best and final offer, the outcome of that results in what is called a bid waiver. So that is the terminology that's used. And so we did a BAFO, resulted in us having to do a bid waiver based on the outcome of that BAFO, which was Aetna continuing to have the better pricing. On the second question, we determined that the pricing that we got from AVMED was out of market. It was exceptionally higher than what our colleagues and peers were experiencing in South Florida and around the country. At that point in time, approximately 2 years ago, we started negotiating with them to see if we could get inline pricing with AVMED, knowing that we were going to need to RFP. We spent about 18 months trying to negotiate better pricing with AVMED, and hopefully thinking that if we could at least get better pricing, this board would entertain an extension. We've been with AVMED since, I believe, 2016 was the last time there was a procurement.
2008.
2008, okay.
Yep.
Wow, long time. And so it was time to go to the market to compete. It's the best practice of any organization to make sure that you're getting the best product and service. When we were unable to get that better pricing through negotiations for an extension, we chose to do an RFP. And at that point in time, we went out to the market to see which of the providers would be interested in our business, knowing that AVMED would compete, and looking to see if they would come in with better pricing. That's how we ended up where we are.
Thank you.
Thank you. And so under that premise, I do want to emphasize, and Commissioner Garcia touched on this, as did Commissioner Regalado, but can you explain exactly what Miami-Dade County is purchasing? What are we really buying here, right? Because I think Commissioner Regalado made a good point when she referenced the claim aspect. As I understand it, we are self-insured. I think that's an important point for folks at home to understand, as far as, you know, the bid waiver process, what we're getting, what are we actually buying here?
Through the chair. So what the county is buying is the administrative services of a third party to help us manage our self-funded health program. So the county is self-funded. We are responsible for all of the encounters that our employees have with the medical system. Those encounters result in bills. What we are purchasing is administrative services from a company that can ensure that we reduce our cost to the magnitude possible through their relationships and their network of providers in the market.
And so going off that, what are the savings to the county, if any, that you folks saw? I'm not talking about Gallagher, but that you folks saw. What are the savings that you saw that would result should this commission choose to switch to Aetna?
Again, through the chair, the savings that we see are our ability to have a lower, I can't help but use the word claims, but claims experience. So as an employee has an encounter with a healthcare system, right, the pre-negotiated rate with that doctor is what we're trying to get to the lowest common denominator. As a result of the economies of scale that Senator Garcia spoke of, Aetna has the capacity and the experience, proven experience, to ensure that those claims, those bills that we receive are as low as possible.
Can you give me like a yearly figure? Can you give me a number?
So in the upcoming year, the projected estimates that we, and I'll use the Aon number, is about $45.5 million in savings.
And how did they, as you understand it, how did they arrive at that number? Is it because of the economies of scale?
Well, Aon arrived at that number by doing an analysis of bills, claims, and then comparing the network that Aetna has to the network that AVMED has, the pre-negotiated rates. That's how Aon arrived at that number.
Got it. So did they get like samples of, hey, here's, for lack of a better word, bills or claims, and tell me what you would come up with, and then the other side, tell me what you would come up with, and then let's figure out what a comparison would be?
Yes, and they didn't actually ask them to give them an answer, which is the projections. So each party projected what they thought the answer was. We did an independent analysis using Gallagher and Aon, not to go based on what they think the savings is. We asked the actuaries to tell us what the actuaries believed the savings would be based on the guaranteed networks that have already been established.
And based on roughly 9 months worth of claims?
Correct. And I won't go, I can explain more, but I'll stop. Yes, the answer to that would be yes.
And so my next question is, when Gallagher and Aon analyzed the numbers, who provided them with those numbers?
When they analyzed the encounters, the claims?
Yeah, like, so
the bills,
did they have direct
county.
access to
Yes.
both of the proposers?
If I can.
Did they have, go ahead.
You want to answer the question of when you're saying, how did they get the information that they analyzed?
How did they,
The
where did the
county
information
provided
come
it.
from? Who gave them the information? Is it information from real claims? Did we make up the information? Who gave them the information?
It's real information that the county provided them based on our claims history and experience.
From 2023. This was
Correct.
2023 data that was shared with both the companies. The real claims line by line in an Excel spreadsheet containing about 1.5 million records, maybe 1.35 million records that they both got, and they entered, and the records would have, okay, this provider employee went here, this is the bill, $1,000. So each provider would have said, okay, my discount with that, let's say South Miami Hospital is 65%, other would have said my 71%, and they would fill it out. So once we get the information back, we turn it over to Gallagher, and now the Aon, the same information that they both of these companies provided.
Got it. So basically, you guys pull the numbers, you guys give them the numbers, and then they do their analysis.
Correct.
And when do you expect to see these savings realized?
So the way that this works, and if you'll just have to forgive me, it'll take just a minute to explain this, is that when you look at 12 months worth of experience, we're looking at about a $45 million savings if we were to go with Aetna. That is a savings to the funds that we need to pay the claims. So it means we have more money to pay claims than we would have. That will happen over the course of a year, but claims and encounters are not always billed in the same year. So if you go to the doctor today, Commissioner, I might not see that bill till next year, which is 2026, and it might not get paid even until 2027. So there is a arrears in the payment experience. And so over the course of the year, we will see a reduction in how much we have to pay per claim. And over time, we'll experience lower cost a bending of the cost curve, which will help the county tremendously. One of the things that I would like to add in AVMED's proposal or presentation, they showed the cost curve going up, and they projected it going up about 14%. What Aetna is doing is not only providing us savings through their network, but they're putting in programs and services that would actually reduce the cost curve so that our cost is not going up exponentially. We're going to try to reduce the cost curve. As we do that, the county will save money over time.
As far as back to the numbers, as far as those numbers are concerned, did Aetna or AVMED, did you folks get a chance to speak to the proposers as far as receiving those numbers, or did you get those numbers directly from the administration?
Commissioner, would you like for someone from either or both Aetna and AVMED to come to the podium to respond to your question?
Yes, Mr. Chair, please.
Thank you. Can I get a representative from AVMED and one from Aetna to come to the podium to answer the question, please? Thank you.
Or perhaps it's the consultants that receive the numbers.
Commissioner, maybe could you clarify your question?
What I'd like to know is if the consultants or the providers, the numbers that were given to them for the 9-month break, were they given directly by the administration, or were you able to pull real numbers?
Would you like me to start?
Go ahead, yes, please.
An RFP process is sent out for, the RFP includes a lot of data elements, including the scope of services, data files, which include the bills that you want us to reprice. So that comes packaged out to the community on a certain day, and then we are allowed to ask questions. Questions are answered, and we respond by a certain day. There's no opportunity with the cone to speak to anybody other than the procurement process. So those files were included in the RFP submission along with multiple files and data elements. So we received that from the RFP process.
Okay, because I could have sworn I heard Aon say it, that they spoke to both.
Yes.
Right. So I'm a little confused because
No.
And this is just as to the validity of the numbers, because I'm concerned with the savings, and I have a follow-up question on the savings.
So to answer your question, I'm sorry, I did not understand your question through the chair. The Aon actually did speak with AVMED and Aetna at our request. One of the things this board asked us to do when we got the second opinion was to make sure that the consultant spoke to both parties, and we facilitated making sure they had a meeting with both parties to understand some of the assumptions that were made in their projections. So that did happen, yes. I'm sorry, I didn't understand your question.
Commissioner, just for clarity, because I see exactly where you're going. So he's trying to get a direct question answered, and it's like we're circling the wagon on this straightforward question. It's whether or not the information was received that's been referenced to. Is that pretty much your question, Mr. Commissioner?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to make sure, did you folks have a chance to verify those numbers when they were doing that analysis?
So we received the claims data. I can validate that we definitely received that information. Once the analysis was completed, before it was presented to the administration, we were not given an opportunity to clarify any discrepancies that we thought were within the analysis. That information was only given to us after it was given to the administration.
What about you guys?
The process works as described. The RFP process does not allow for additional discussion through the cone, so no additional information was circulated at that time.
Would you like to clarify, Namda?
So, Commissioner, when the committee was evaluating, and as a part of their evaluation, there were oral presentations. As a set of those oral presentations, specific questions were asked from both companies, and they presented the answers in that round. And then, per the board directive, Aon spoke with both the companies, with AVMED and Aetna, to clarify, to get answers for the question that they didn't have, if they had any concerns. So both companies were given opportunity to speak with the consultants
Okay,
twice.
I just want to make sure that both providers were comfortable with the numbers that that were being used to make this analysis.
To be clear, we are not. I think what we have seen out of the consultants is inconsistent with what we would have expected. It's inconsistent with an analysis I've done now on.
Sir, give me 1 second, Commissioner. I'm going to ask pretty much that we give a little more respect to the speakers. We're trying to understand, and I can hear a lot more conversations on the other side. Sir, if you don't mind, because you have a very soft voice in a sense, either raise up and lean in.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
You bet.
Say it with your chest.
Just to answer the question again, so I think we are not comfortable with what is in the proposals from Gallagher or Aon based on AVMED's information and what we know about our business. And as an example, both of them have quoted you that our discount is 65% based on the information. My own analysis of the same data set arrives at a much higher number, and even more, the actual data that we provide to the county on a very regular basis shows us at a 70% discount. So that's a 5% differential between what was given to the administration, to the commissioners, to make this decision versus what is actually happening today in 2025 for the county. And as was pointed out by Aetna, 1 percentage point there is worth $10 million. So 5 percentage point difference is a $50 million difference in what was represented versus what actually is occurring today, which more than wipes out the quoted savings.
So just to be fair here, and I don't know if Namada can answer this, did you guys get a chance to dispute those numbers? Namada, did they get a chance when the committee met to dispute those numbers?
They provided answers to the questions that the committee had. I also want to state something. We did an RFP in 2008. AVMED won, Aetna lost. We did another RFP in 2015. AVMED won, Aetna lost. And I couldn't go back to the records from 2007, but definitely in 2015, Gallagher was our consultant. Same repricing files were used. The same methodology was used. The only difference is, at that time, AVMED won, so that was the best process.
Well, not exactly, but to be fair, I mean, not exactly, respectfully. Respectfully, that's not exactly true, but just to be fair, right? What you're saying is we've used the same process the entire time, and what you're saying is nobody complained about how the process was being used. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Except that, because I'm hearing some of my colleagues also weigh in. We're talking about a possible $1 billion either win or mistake, right? So that's the only reason we're going into this, right? You mentioned, sir, something about 69% as opposed to a 65%.
Yes.
Okay, so how, because if both of you received the same if both of you received the same claims and data to work with, right? And we're talking about, I'm just being real with you, sir. We're talking about two consultants that have said the same thing, or more or less the same thing. They're off by 0.5%. How did you arrive at 69%? And two, respectfully, very respected consultants and very good math people of the world, they arrived at 65 point something percent.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think there's probably a few points I would make on it. The first is, it was a rushed process. These are complicated analyses. It's 1.3 million rows of claims. So the fact that it was so rushed, I think, did not necessarily maybe give them the time necessary to ask the tough questions, ask and better understand what was needed to get to the right answer for AVMED. Aon touched on this in their presentation today. We have a multi-tiered network. So when you look at the plan design that we have developed in conjunction with the county over the years to try and optimize the costs that you have in the network, we have a select network, we have a Jackson First network, which come with better discounts. Because of that, we have to reprice the claims in a different manner than what Aetna would do. They take every claim, they reprice it once, they're done. We have to reprice the claims based on every network that we're offering and making sure that every claim maps to the appropriate network that we are offering to you. As a result, you have to understand the dynamics of AVMED's contracts, and for a given claim, which network should you be paying it under? I don't think that is well understood by the consultants, not to fault them. I think it's complicated and they didn't have enough time to answer and understand the depth of that process. But when I perform that analysis, understanding the networks, that's how I arrive at a 68, 69% number relative to the 65 that's in the actual analysis.
Okay, theoretically, let's say you're right. Theoretically. Because again, we had two separate consultants that came to the same conclusion. I'm just trying to be fair here, sir. Theoretically, if you were right, what does that mean for the numbers? In English, sir, please, not in math science.
If the discount that I calculate is correct, $40 to $50 million of costs would be erased from what the consultants have supplied for AVMED. So we basically see an improvement, a lower cost for the county that AVMED would be able to offer through our discounts.
So it would kind of be the same cost is what you're saying?
Correct. It'd be very, very close.
But okay, all right. I do want to ask follow-up questions to Aetna, because from what I understand, there's other things, assuming that this is correct, there are things that you folks offer that AVMED doesn't offer. I'm sure everybody's been briefed on all of those things. But I do want to go back to these savings, right? So let's say that the savings are going to happen, whether it's with these numbers or the other numbers, right? Because you're saying that it closes the gap of 40 million. Either way, it's going to be less. To the administration, have the savings already been accounted for in this year's budget?
Through the chair, I do think there's one thing that's important to note. 1% is $10 million. And so AVMED, even if we went with their math, was 69 versus 71, it's $20 million. Still difference. And so the savings have been taken into account for this coming year. What we did was we reduced the cost of employee benefits for each department to a tune of about a total of $17 million to release pressure on the general fund.
Is that for all employees?
For all employees. And so,
can you tell me what that means for the employees of Miami-Dade County? Are they going to be paying less?
No, the amount of money that employees pay will stay the same. We did not change the benefit structure at this point in time. However, given the opportunity, if this board's pleasure, to go with Aetna, we will then be able to work with our collective bargaining agreements to look at different benefit structures moving forward. But for the purposes of comparing apples to apples, the benefit structure remained the same.
Okay.
Commissioner, just one quick
please,
interjection. You still have the floor, but just Chief, because I remember asking this question, and I want to say I asked it on the mic last meeting, but I think I definitely know I asked it in one of our briefings to David in finance, but it was my understanding that either way it's an important decision. It was my understanding that the savings we will not see until the 26-27 fiscal year. This was told to me by the finance director, right? By David Clodfelter. I want to say I also asked it on the microphone last month, but I certainly asked it in one of my briefings, and the answer was made very clear that obviously we have to start a year in advance to get there. So the earlier we start, the better. I'm not suggesting we delay the decision, but nonetheless, it was a little different than your answer. Can you clarify that? And then you still have the floor, Commissioner.
So
Yeah, Mr.
through the
Chair, that's a great question, right?
Correct.
So if we're not going to see those savings, how are we cooking this into the budget?
So I think there's two sets of, there's different ways in which we save. So the 45 million is a savings on the bills, the claims. That's the claims experience. So that, as I explained a little while ago, is something that happens over time, and we will not see that in fiscal year 26. We're not baking that in to fiscal year 26. Thank you, Senator Garcia, for helping me. What we will see and what we have done for fiscal year 26 is we reduced the liability per employee that each department has to pay. So the departments have to pay for the healthcare benefits that their employees get, right? So what we said is we needed to release some pressure on the general fund. So we released or reduced the amount of money that each department is paying per employee to free up approximately $17 million. It's a completely different set of money, different pot, different thing. The $45 million is how much we would save on the bills each encounter. That's one number. The other number is how much does Miami-Dade pay for each employee to have coverage? That's the second number, Chairman. So I'm not sure if I explained that very well.
So just to be clear, Mr. Chair, if I may. So just to be clear, what you're saying is now we're not going to have to pay an excess amount, and so that's going to be money that's going to stay on our side.
If we're talking about the cost per employee to have coverage, yes.
Got it. And so what my question was is, has that savings been accounted for in the budget? And if so, what is it that we're going to be using it for? Because there's some helicopters that the firefighters really need to save lives. And so I'm just curious, what are we using that money for?
When, through the chair, when we did our briefings with you all earlier this summer, we went through the entire budget and the shortfall. And in there, we showed you the ways in which we were filling the gap. That was one of the ways in which we were filling the gap.
So you were banking on this passing before it even came to the commission?
It's not, we weren't banking on this passing. We were banking on an approval of a new healthcare administrator, and that the administrative cost, right, would change.
So if we don't pass this today, you're not going to have a balanced budget? Is that what you're saying?
Well, what I'm saying is that whether, how do I say this without putting my foot in my mouth? We will still have a balanced budget because we are lowering the cost to each department for the administration of benefits to the respective employees in that department.
Chief, let me jump in. Right for you to say those words of not putting your foot in your mouth, because it's a very difficult question to answer. I recognize that. I just don't know that both can be true. I don't know that you can have it accounted for, and then that budget is balanced with that being accounted for, and then if it's not accounted for, the budget remains balanced. I don't know that both could be true, but I understand it's I guess it will be readjusted, like the balance would be changed, or?
Through the chair.
Does that make sense what I'm saying, or am I not
No,
understanding?
I understand
Point
the
of
complexity.
information. Point of information.
Yeah.
Point of information.
You're very, I mean, the commissioner still has the floor, but you're
Point
you're
of information.
recognized for
We use the nomenclature balanced budget and deficit and stuff like that. So what the administration has is a proposed budget. The budget is going to be balanced because we're lawfully required to pass a balanced budget. So we don't have deficits as a county. Let's put that to bed. And we don't have an unbalanced budget. It's always going to be balanced. What they're saying is that just based on administrative costs, no matter who they pick, this is what they're going to pay for the administration of the plans. That's what they're saying. So no matter who we pick, we're going to reduce the cost that we pay for the administration of this plan per employee, so per department. They factored that $17 million in as a savings. That has nothing to do with the claims or bills, as Commissioner Regalado wants us to call them, that comes into the county and we pay. That's a completely different savings that happens over time. So that won't be actualized in this current year because of how bills roll. It'll be actualized over time. But as we have 12-month cycles, you'll be getting an average of, what they're saying is an average of $45 million a year. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah,
Yeah, and Mr. Chair, I think Commissioner Gilbert makes a fair point, but I think that what Carla Denise is respectfully speaking to is another $17 million that we're gonna save theoretically in each paycheck that comes out.
No. So, gosh,
So where
I wish healthcare wasn't so
where are those savings?
So there's various ways in which we ensure employees and their families and our retirees have access to medical services, all right? It costs money for access to medical services. And so what we do, as most employers do, is a portion of the cost to have access to medical services is borne by the employee, and a portion is borne by the employer.
That we pay.
Correct.
And the
Right.
employees also
So
pay.
just for sake of exemplification, let's just say it costs $5,000 a month for you to have access to medical coverage. The employee pays half, 250.
And Miami-Dade County pays?
Right. So I'm making up a number, an
Right.
example, 5,000, just because it's easy.
Right.
So the employee pays 2,500, and then the employer pays 2,500. So you know when you get your paycheck and
Yes.
it shows the money that's come out?
And theoretically, it's gonna be less now, correct?
Correct. Not for the employee, for the
right.
department.
Exactly. And so that is savings, which is what you are alluding to. Is that correct?
Correct.
Does it matter who we choose?
In this instance, no.
It
does
doesn't.
not.
Okay,
In
got it.
this instance.
So no matter who we choose, we're going to get savings.
The departments
Departmental
will
savings.
have already, we've attributed in the proposed budget, which could change, a savings to each department for the amount that they have to contribute to each employee's health coverage.
If we choose one over the other, will it be more savings?
In this particular instance, the number that we projected and proposed, we've put in the budget, and unless this board chooses to change the mayor's proposal, then no, it will be the number that has been proposed.
Got it. And so you proposed a safe number.
Correct. We were conservative.
Love that. Love that. The excess, have we allocated, or when that excess comes in, where does that money go? Have we thought about how we're going to use it?
What, boy, I know enough to be dangerous. So, after we have 1 year of claims history and experience, and we go back and we say, wow, the money that we would have spent, we spent less. This board will have the option of saying what to do. Now, what I need for you to know, though, is that based on our collective bargaining agreements, the amount of money the employees pay stays the same. We will have the opportunity to renegotiate that. The amount of money the retirees pay changes year over year. Again, we would have the opportunity to consider that. But the most important thing is that we have to, by law, maintain a certain balance in our healthcare trust fund so we can pay the claims, right, that are unanticipated. So as someone who is actually conservative, I believe we need to fully fund that trust fund so that we are not in a pickle in the event the claims exceeds the amount of money I have saved.
Okay.
Commissioner,
Commissioner,
can I just
yes,
still have the floor?
please, Mr. Chair.
So I just want to make sure what we're hearing is you've accounted for the savings and the proposed 25-26 budget.
Commissioner, we did not account for the 45 million savings to our claims and bills. We did not. We did reduce the administrative cost to the departments in the 26 proposed budget.
Okay. Thank you.
Love the fact that you brought up the bargaining agreements, because I do have some questions on that. And I don't know if this has to do, I don't know if this is a proper question for you, CFO, or if this would be a better question for Gallagher or or the other, or
Aon.
Aon? But in calculating the savings, were the constitutional officers and their employees taken into consideration?
Yes,
Because of the economies of scale that
Yes.
Commissioner Garcia so eloquently explained.
at this moment, they have all chosen to continue being a part of the Miami-Dade County family as it relates to receipt of benefits.
Got it. And so I think that, you know, I've heard, you know, kind of where the sheriff's position is, but should the other constitutional officers theoretically not opt in or not want to switch, would that affect those savings and numbers?
Commissioner, if we stick with Aetna, or if we choose, if this board's pleasure to go with Aetna, it will not have the same ripple effect because they have a national network with guaranteed rates and savings. I do not know the implications for AVMED because it would have an impact on the size of their business, which impacts their negotiating power.
Have you folks received assurances from the constitutional officers they're going to opt in? Because I think that's important then.
Team, do I have an answer to that question? I mean, at this point, they have not opted out, but I can't say if they've opted in. My team is saying they're all in. They're all in.
All of them
For
are okay with this.
26, for fiscal year 26.
Okay, awesome. So how does a possible switch to Aetna affect the collective bargaining agreements, if it affects it at all?
At this point, there would be no impact because we're not changing the benefit structure. Aetna is as I said, an administrator, bills claims administrator. They're providing a service.
Would it be at all necessary to open the collective bargaining agreements?
Not in order to approve this recommendation.
So should the board choose Aetna today, what protections are available to the county if Aetna fails to deliver the so-called savings?
So in the contract, there are guarantees, and we have termination clauses if those guarantees or there's any breach to the contract as our fiscal administrator.
Do we have a liquidated damages clause?
Team, is there a liquidated damages clause in the contract?
You may approach Namada. Yes or no?
What we have is a payment corridor, which you can think of it as a liquidated damage, that if they don't meet those percentages, they're liable for payments back to the county.
Got it. So if for whatever reason the numbers don't end up being what they should be, they're going to have to pay a penalty?
Yes, it's built in the contract.
What is that penalty?
I have to.
I have it here. If the guarantees have not been met, they will provide reimbursement to you for the amount due, reduce future administrative fee payments by the amount due, and then we reserve the right to revise, remove, amend, or terminate the contract.
I'm sorry. Can you repeat that?
God, I wish I had my cheaters. If they fail to meet the guarantees, they will either provide reimbursement in the amount due, reduce future administrative fees, and we reserve the county the right to revise, remove, amend, or terminate the contract.
So they're guaranteeing the savings. That's what I'm hearing. I'm hearing that they're guaranteeing the savings. Is that true or is that not true?
Commissioner, that is true. That is actually the nature of this contract.
Can we hear it from Aetna themselves if they're guaranteeing the same?
Yeah, Aetna,
I would like to hear that on the record.
Are you putting your money where your mouth is?
Yes, we are guaranteeing the discount that at 73%, that's actually a little bit higher than what Aon or Gallagher came up with. So they are guaranteed, yes.
Okay.
They are guaranteed. I did not see that in the contract. I don't know if any of my colleagues did. I did not see that in the contract, but if you're saying it on the record, so if we could get that in writing, that would make me very comfortable.
All right. Can I? Yes, I want to see it in writing too, by the way. I did ask that, and I was guaranteed that it is there. Mike, I know you've been waiting to say and rebuttal something, so I'll afford you that opportunity in a second. Commissioner, you technically have the floor, but can I do a round of commissioners, and then if you have additional questions?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
I have Commissioner Gilbert pending, Cohen-Higgins, and Regalado. And if you need a second bite of the apple, we'll get there. Commissioner Gilbert, and at some point in the middle, I want to hear from Llorente, who has been kind of waving me down. So
You can hear from Llorente before I speak, because I'm.
okay,
I'm
Llorente, do you want to come? Just be brief, please. But I know you've been jumping up and down like
Thank you, of
kid in a
course.
classroom on their first day of school.
Yes, and I appreciate the teacher calling on me. So thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Two things. Number one, the question was, are you guaranteeing savings? And the answer was, we are guaranteeing discounts. Two very different things. What is being guaranteed, what is being offered to the county is essentially the same discount guarantee that AVMED has offered. It is not a guarantee of savings, it is a guarantee of discount rate. One more final point, Mr. Chairman, because I think it's important. As I hear all this conversation unfold, what becomes clear to me, and I get lost in some of the math, right? There's been a lot of talk about insurance and math and this and that. Let me kind of level set here for a minute. What's clear to me is that we are sort of setting aside the RFP and making this decision based on one simple question. And that question is, what would each of these providers have charged the county in 2023? It all comes down to the repriced claims, right? I mean, that's what it seems like we're doing. We're saying, if we had those 1.35 million claims, if you were our provider in 2023, what would we have paid? And the analysis from the two consultants has shown a $45 million gap. Now, let me tell you what I heard. What I heard in Aetna's presentation is, if you had us in 2023, the cost would have been $369 million. And you can ask them, you can look at it, because it should be in your packet. So Aetna has said, if you had us, the price in 2023 would have been $369 million, and we trended that forward with assumptions we don't think are reasonable, and that's how we got to 503. But Aetna has told this body that Aetna would have charged the county $369 million in 2023 based on its repriced claims, okay? For us, we are the incumbent. You don't have to go through a complicated actuarial analysis to figure out how much we would have charged the county in 2023, because we did charge the county in 23. We were the provider. And you know what the total cost of medical claims was in 2023? $365 million. Just about the same as Aetna. It's the same thing, Mr. Chairman. It's the same thing, commissioners. If you had AVMED in 2023, the cost would have been $365 million in medical claims, because that's what the actual cost was. And what you're being told is, well, if Aetna had been the provider in 2023, we would have charged the county $369 million. So why the variance? And this is where things can get a little bit complicated. The variance is because both consultants made a fatal error, an assumption in their analysis that we don't understand. And that assumption is that they assumed our discounts are 65%. They are not. The most recent report shows our discounts at 69.9%. When you adjust all these assumptions, and when you factor in the real numbers for AVMED, and this county has the benefit, and I would say the obligation, to factor in real numbers for AVMED, the $40 million in savings dissipates. And again, this is very, very simple. Actual cost under AVMED in 2023, $365. Projected cost, if you had been using AVMED at the time, $369. Commissioners, there's no $40 million in savings, and Aetna is not offering to guarantee a penny of those illusory $40 million in savings. I know I went over just a couple minutes, Commissioner, and but I appreciate the opportunity.
Commissioner Gilbert has the floor, but just
5 minutes.
The same question that Commissioner Gonzalez asked Aetna, I'd ask of AVMED, right? Is, would AVMED guarantee that 69.9%? That's to AVMED, that's to you.
Yeah, we would, and we did. It's in the RFP response.
Okay, so both are agreeing, and that changes a lot. All right, Commissioner Gilbert, you do have the floor.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, to my colleagues, to everyone here. What's your name again?
Eric Johnson.
Dr. Johnson, right? You're like a PhD. What was that? You prefer. Nuclear physics, or what was that?
Nuclear physics, yes.
That's so impressive. So I'm not like a nuclear physics person. And I'm not an actuary either. I think that we've done a lot, and a lot of this has been theater. Because when you like to boil things down to their base components, you're paid by AVMED, she's paid by Aetna. You're never going to stand at that microphone and say that we should pick them. She's never going to stand at that microphone and say that we should pick you all. Those are things that will never happen. We hire a consultant. One consultant says, hey, we're looking at this, and we do this for a living. We have a whole bunch of people who have degrees probably not unlike you. We're looking at this, and what do they think? Well, the first consultant comes and says, hey, well, this plan is broader, nationwide, and they're going to save you some money. And so we say as a board, hey, you know what? Because you all also employ very good lobbyists. And shout out to Ellis, and I saw Alex Heck here, Lorente, y'all are cool, who muddy the water some. And when they muddy the waters, they say, yeah, but is it really savings, or is it really discounts? Or they confuse it. So we say, you know what? That's fine. Gallagher's kind of embedded with the county. Let's get another independent type analysis. And the independent type analysis that wasn't embedded with the county, that did not do the initial, RFP, said, you know what? We kind of agree that there's going to be savings here. So if I set your opinion aside because you're paid to say that, I set your lobbyist opinion aside because they're paid to say that. I set your opinion aside because you're paid to say that, and set your lobbyist opinion aside because they are paid to say that. I'm left with the people who we pay to analyze it for us. This is not complicated. This is theater at this point. At this point, it's just theater. Listen, I had one young lady over there who asked me about, she's an employee here at Miami-Dade County. She said, please don't change. I said, why? She said, well, my doctor's not going to be covered. I said, that's likely not true, but she was one employee. When we say that employees don't trust the process, the employees' representatives are sitting in the audience saying they want to be with Aetna. When we talk about the constitutional officers and whether they will opt in or opt out, the sheriff opting out would be a catastrophe next year. A catastrophe for this county. The sheriff is saying, no, we recommend Aetna. I don't have bad things to say about AVMED. I see Lourdes in the audience from AVMED. She services our accounts. It's been good. I don't have a problem with you all. But when we look at what's best for the county right now in this moment, this is just theater. To our CFO, Carla Denise, all respect in the world for her. I appreciate her answers. The question is, no, we won't see the complete savings in this year. What they're saying is, if we adopt this as it rolls around, we'll see an average savings of $40 to $45 million. The $17 million is how much we're going to pay less in administrative fees. That's separate from 45. Otherwise, it would have been $62 million in savings. But that's not what they said. So she didn't quite answer the question that he asked. But the answer is no, it's not going to be in 1 year. But that's the average savings. But we shouldn't be budgeting on 1 year forecast anyway. We should be budgeting on 5 years forecast anyway. So this is not that complicated. It's just not. And I appreciate the service that you all have had for the county. You've all had a great run, a long run. But when we look at, can we get equal or better service with equal or more expanded coverage and realize actual savings, the question becomes, are you going to believe somebody who's paid to say it on either side, or are you going to believe the people who you paid to analyze it? Because we paid Gallagher and Aon to actually analyze this. And unless we're actuaries, what we're saying is we're going to spend now 2 hours. We're going to spend 2 hours second guessing the actuaries that we paid to do this. So if AVMED is right, that not only is Aetna wrong, but the actuaries aren't that smart. They apparently both messed it up. Now, I'm not going to get into the fact that I'm pretty sure both Aon and or Gallagher have recommended AVMED previously. So they're only actually not getting it when they recommend somebody else? That's folly. That is folly. And this is theater. The constitutional officers, the ones that we've heard from, have spoken. The unions are sitting out there, they've spoken. The selection committee, the evaluation committee, they said, hey, no, we want to change with Aetna. The administration came and said they want to change with Aetna. The two consultants that we hired said it's the better deal. That's what just happened. That's the summary, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. All right, Commissioner Regalado or Cohen-Higgins? Commissioner Regalado? Go ahead.
Thank you. I've spoken to hundreds of Miami-Dade County employees in the last few weeks. And what's interesting about all of those interactions is it had absolutely nothing to do with what we're doing at this moment. Because the questions that I got were, why isn't sedation for my autistic child covered? Why isn't adult daycare covered? Why isn't these covered? Why isn't that covered? We, the county, decide that. That has nothing to do with our provider. So, and I had to explain to them, well, actually, the county commission and the administration, and by the way, I see it as a parent of an autistic child that pays for her services out of pocket because this county does not support autistic adults after the age of 12. Full stop. Full stop. And that's a decision that we have to look at after we make this decision. But this is about providers. And no one is going to have any change in their coverage because we are the ones that determine what is covered and what is not covered. So I challenge the tremendous misinformation and agony that this has caused our employees unnecessarily. And we haven't even touched upon our retirees. Our retirees have blown up my phone, and I'm sure they're calling many of you too, because this analysis and these memos don't even mention them. And that's something that we have to deal with moving forward. And when we talk about a national network, that does impact our retirees. Because a lot of them, as you all know, retire outside of Miami-Dade County because they can't afford to live here. And when I spoke to most of our police officers that retired, most of them retire outside. Jennifer Moon, Tallahassee, right? I mean, we could go on and on. So there is a fiscal impact that this triggers that we will continue to analyze. To Commissioner Gilbert's point, the reason that we hire actuaries to do this is because this is, to a certain extent, looking into a crystal ball. It is. It will always be. We could bring 5 experts, 4 experts, 10 experts. It will always be a crystal ball analysis because the analysis states, based on your past use of a service, what is going to be your future use. That's what we're looking at. The actuaries are determining how long will people live, how sick do they get, right? How many times are they going to go to the doctor? So it really, and that's why we said we wanted another opinion. So we got it, okay? Now, if you're still unhappy with it, that's a different conversation. But if the same methodology was used and they were not tainted, then I don't understand why we're picking it apart. And I don't think, yes, they're going to have discrepancies because they have different analysis. So they're going to have discrepancies. Now, the part that I think is interesting about this is, number one, what does Aetna bring that's different? And by the way, I met with both of them. I looked at all of their stuff. I think, and again, I think AVMED has done a great job. I will say, and we didn't get the presentations that we got individually, right? So there's pieces missing here for folks. I will say that, their agreement with CVS is very interesting, right? What they're going to give our employees back in terms of if you choose CVS. You don't have to choose CVS, but if you do choose CVS, you are going to get a benefit. The Minute Clinic thing is interesting. The fact that our employees and ourselves, I personally go to Minute Clinic already, but you know, if you're opting for that, that's going to be dramatically cheaper, right? So now you're looking at going to a Minute Clinic at CVS instead of going to an urgent care, right? And that could be a lot cheaper. So I think that as this progresses, we're going to see changes. Now, we haven't talked about Jackson, okay? And we need to talk about Jackson because Jackson is our hospital. Jackson is the only public hospital that is funded by the residents of a county in the entire state. Every other one gets subsidized by the state should their bills not be paid. We, the residents of Miami-Dade County, subsidize Jackson if Jackson has an issue. So my question is to what is going to be done in terms of Jackson. I know that Jackson has been working on a series of things. And the question is, in terms of both proposals, you know, both proposals, what are you looking at in terms of population management and working with Jackson? Because that's an ongoing thing. They're doing it over there. This board has invested in Jackson's capital plan. We've invested in Doral. You know, we've turned the corner. And one of the things that we've talked about year after year is getting more of our employees to use Jackson and to choose Jackson. So where is Jackson in this? Because we haven't heard them, and they are part of this system.
Yeah, so if I can, I think I referenced this earlier that AVMED has designed in conjunction with the county a multitude of different networks and plans. One of them is the Jackson First Plan. And the purpose of that plan was to push additional utilization at the hospital because we felt that it was good for the county and good for the members to get the proper care in that setting at a high quality hospital. And so that plan is built and designed to encourage people in the county, the employees and families of the county, to go to Jackson and to work with the excellent providers, caregivers there to make sure that the quality of care they're getting from Jackson, from the county-based hospital is there, and they have an incentive to align themselves in doing so.
But what has been, I mean, you've been our provider for decades. What has been your outcome? What have been your outcomes? I mean, obviously you have the advantage because you have been our provider, right? So you have been working with Jackson. From then I'm only gonna hear what they're planning on doing with Jackson. But what have been your outcomes based on your current work with Jackson?
Yeah, so I think, you know, what we have with Jackson is first of all a better rate of savings that we get with Jackson. So the rate you pay to Jackson is lower than any other hospital in the area. So that's the first level of savings that we've been able to execute on in the network. In addition to that, our care management team, our disease management team works very closely with all of the physicians at the hospital to make sure that when a Miami-Dade County member goes to that hospital, we have good alignment of care. We make sure that the PCPs are aware and notified of any type of hospitalization, and we're able to coordinate that care and deliver on the best quality of services that they need. Now, our disease management program has significant ROIs, anywhere from changes year to year, but 2 to 5 times what you invest in that program is returned through the disease management program as we are able to better coordinate care, provide the best services, and make sure that people are getting the recovery they need when they have a significant health event.
Okay, to Aetna.
Thank you. I want to start off by saying we were asked to match the Jackson network. Throughout all your benefit designs, you have steerage to the Jackson facilities. That is not changing. That is a coverage component. The only thing that is different that now you have a national network to wrap around the Jackson network. So members will go to the Jackson system if that's the benefit plan that they've selected. If they want to go outside the system, Jackson system, then they can use our national network. All the other plan designs, the ones that have built-in steerage to Jackson, we're matching that. And they'll have our full national network if they select the Select plan or the Advantage plan. So all of our plans have steerage to Jackson, all have access to the national network. From a clinical program, we do population health management. We have for many years. I'll let the doctor speak about that in more detail.
Yes, thank you. And by way of background, I'm a family doc, trained about 30 years ago, so been in the business in the industry for quite some time, been with Aetna for about 20 years, maybe a couple years shy of 20 years. What we do really with health systems around the country is we integrate with them from the standpoint of what we call decision support, where we help physicians make the best decisions for their patients. We close gaps in care. That has not factored into these savings discussions, by the way, but what we do through our closing gaps in care and reaching out to physicians is effectively save money by preventing things like heart attacks, strokes, really important things to prevent as a way of reducing cost. We also stratify entire populations, looking at people who have lifestyle risk factors to those who may have chronic conditions, and we engage them in a variety of means, both through digital means and through coaching in order to drive better results. Final thing I'll mention is that we also have unique collaborations with health systems around the country. We could certainly explore discussions like this with Jackson. Those collaborations can range from things like joint ventures to what we call accountable care organizations, where the health system becomes a participant in managing the health of the population and taking on some of that financial risk and clinical risk tied to that, as well as driving innovation and bringing it into the system by bringing some of the most innovative procedures that are just being taken into the market that can save savings. I heard the CVS Minute Clinic call out. That certainly is a disruptive innovation that brings down your costs. There are a lot of other technologies that are coming into the industry that can do that as well. So personally, I think that the savings that we've talked about is vastly understated. And when you talk about the impact on health, usually a maxim or a rule of thumb is for every dollar you save in costs, when you're doing it by preventing things like heart attack and stroke, you're saving $2 in productivity. That's a conversation I'd love to have with you at some point as well.
Thank you. I just
The
want
other thing I'd like to add, I'm sorry about that. We have a special discount deal. In addition to our lower cost deal, we entered into an arrangement through that select system to get even better discounts. So I wanted to just reinforce that, and that is part of the repricing.
Okay. Whatever decision we make, I think one of the things we need to do is we need to have our TPA work with Jackson and do better. I understand that we have something, but I think we need to do better. And I think that the Jackson system as it exists at this moment is very different from as it existed 5 years ago. And I think we need to give those that are choosing the Jackson system more options. So I hope that the administration will do that moving forward, because at the end of the day, you know, Jackson's success is our success, right? And we all agree on that. I honestly, we could continue talking about this, but I think at some point we need to just call the question. Because I think we're going to keep disagreeing on the basics here in terms of what is the final outcome. Like my colleagues, I wish this would have been brought to us sooner. And my final question to the administration is, what is the plan? I think that we can do the transition, but what is the plan for people that may be caught in that gap? What is the coverage? What is the coverage plan for those folks? So let's say that you're a cancer patient, right? And you have a particular doctor, and now we're in the enrollment period and we're switching over. You're saying that 9 times out of 10, that doctor is going to be covered by the new provider. What happens if they're not? What's the plan, Aetna?
Chief.
If that 1%, within that 1% pool, if any of those doctors are not participating and a member is actively in treatment, they're pregnant, they're having chemo, they have a DME, they have a condition, we will be transitioning them through a transition to care form. What that means is we'll load an authorization in the system so they do not have to change. While we're doing that, we run a parallel course of signing a contract with that provider, so they will not be disrupted.
Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Cohen-Higgins and then Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to my colleagues for the level of engagement and depth in the questions that have been asked. I agree with Commissioner Gonzalez greatly that this is a very important matter that affects all of our county employees, many of which are paying very close attention because they've had the same provider. It's my understanding since 2008. And the points raised by my colleagues are all excellent ones, and I agree with everything that my colleagues have said. I want to back up a little bit, though. At the last hearing where this was brought to us in July, the question that I asked was, how did we get here? All of my colleagues have said for the most part that they're not happy with this kind of rushed nature of this process. It was put on an agenda without committee review. I think Commissioner Gonzalez, for 4-day ruling it, that was the appropriate step to take at that time. And now here we sit during August recess reviewing a very, very time-sensitive, very, very important, and very, very large contract, arguably the largest contract that we will vote on while sitting here at this dais, affecting arguably the largest group of people, i.e. 30,000 employees of Miami-Dade County. So I am very interested in how we got here, essentially the same question that I asked back in July, but I have a series of questions that I'm going to ask related to how we got here, because while Commissioner Gilbert is absolutely correct, and I will be the first, you've heard me say it many, many times before on this dais, if we can save money, let's save money. If we have experts, let's rely on the experts. So for all intent and purposes, Aetna is the glaring obvious choice. I believe it's why our constitutional officers, I believe it's why the vast majority of my colleagues sit here and say, let's go with Aetna, because who doesn't want to save $45 million? The analysis beginning and ending there makes the choice extraordinarily clear. But I think for a contract of this size, it deserves a little bit more detail and a little bit more of a deep dive regarding those savings and how it is that we got here. When we have a procurement process in place, i.e. rules and guidelines that our business community relies upon in order to procure goods and services at Miami-Dade County, there has to be a level of predictability for our business community. Otherwise, this is the wild, wild west, right? Otherwise, it's anything and everything's on the table, and at the end of the day, the predictability doesn't exactly exist because we're going to do whatever we want. That is something that I take, yes, to Carla Denise, yes, because here's the concern that I have regarding this procurement process. We, and this is now me going back to how we got here, with a contract as large as this, $4 billion, involving 30,000 employees, we passed an item, and I'm going to start from the very beginning, back in 2023, that said procurements have to start 2 years in advance. You represented and everybody, 18 months we started having the procurement. But within that item, it says no later than 12 months prior to the expiration of that contract, that RFP needs to be on the street. That didn't happen here. The RFP went out in January, this expired. So we're not even close to complying with our own existing resolutions as it pertains to avoiding a time crunch, last minute rush procurement, which is, I think everybody would agree, what brings us here today. A procurement of this size should not have been rushed to begin with. There's existing rules in place to prevent that. Those rules were completely disregarded, and I'm not exactly sure why. Regarding the actual procurement, I have questions for Aetna and for AVMED, particularly starting with Aetna. Going back to the beginning, you receive an RFP, the RFP is put out on the street, you're asked to provide certain documents and information. In response to that RFP, you were asked to give data points and numbers 5 years into the future. AVMED was asked the same, 2 other competitors were asked the same thing. But Aetna didn't provide numbers beyond just 1 year. You only provided numbers for 2026. You disregarded 27, 28, and 29. To Aetna, why did you not provide the full answers to that in the RFP request originally?
Thank you for allowing us to ask that question. We're not the incumbent. It was 25 data wasn't there. The RFP only had 23 and 24. So the only one that benefits is the incumbent because they know their price. So 25 data is not there. So we can't predict forward. That is why, going back to what Mr. Cantillo said, those numbers on the chart are AVMED's claims numbers, not our projections. We received 2023 data, 2024 data. 25 is blank. So 23 to 24, there's a 14% trend. So to get 25, and any actuary would do it this way, and our actuaries did this, you use the 14%. And that's how you get the 25. So in understanding that we didn't have all the components, we provided you that data based on the components that were there. The repricing is different because the repricing gives all the claims, All the data's there. We run it by our discounts for January of '26.
Okay, and thank you for that. But I'm assuming that we as a county wrote an RFP that all of the competitors, all of the people that are proposing would have the ability to provide responses to. So again, I understand that they're in the incumbent, but the RFP as written asked you to make projections for 26, 27, 28, and 29.
And I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. Go ahead. Go ahead, answer.
We did ask the question, and the answers received was that that information was not available.
Okay. So in your RFP response, 27, 28, 29, and 30 are left completely blank. AVMED was able to provide projections as far as costs all the way to 2030. You did not, and the reason I'm asking this is because on May 8th, 2025, our county attorneys, there were 4 total proposers to this RFP. You, AVMED, and 2 much smaller ones. Our county attorneys on May 8th, 2025, disqualified 2 of the other competitors, saying you are non-responsive due to your failure to submit required cost data. My question is, why were those 2 companies disqualified for failure to submit requested cost data, but you were not? You failed to submit requested cost data, yet you were not deemed to be non-responsive by our county attorneys. I don't understand why that's the case. Why did we disqualify 2 much smaller companies, but not Aetna, when you failed to provide requested cost data? That, for me, I don't understand.
And I think that's for the county attorneys, right?
It may be for the county attorneys, but to the county attorneys, why were they not disqualified for failure to provide requested cost data?
A responsive opinion was never issued, a request for responsive opinion for the Aetna's proposal, and the administration made a determination to proceed on a bid waiver basis, and that issue, at that point, the responsive opinion is not required. I will state that 2 proposers who were disqualified provided nothing. They didn't even provide their ASO fees, administration services fees, so there was 0 information provided. Aetna and AVMED both provided ASO fees, repricing claims, where the other 2 proposers submitted absolutely nothing in response to that appendix.
Okay, again, thank you for that explanation. And again, I'm referring to a May 8th county memorandum where it's explained that the other 2 proposers were deemed non-responsive due to failure to submit requested cost data. I understand that they may not have submitted any requested cost data, but Aetna provided only 1 year when there was a requested going into 6 years, and they didn't provide that information. So I'm just wondering why they were treated differently in that analysis. Moreover, we recently passed, at the sponsorship of Commissioner Eileen Higgins, a mandate that all procurements in excess of $25 million, and this is well in excess of that, a mandate for oral presentations. And throughout the memorandums associated with this, it refers to oral presentations. On June 9th, 2025, there were oral presentations that took place, but there weren't any oral presentations that actually took place on this procurement. It was just a Q&A session. Can someone confirm that for me? Were the proposers given the ability to present oral presentations as required by our rules here, directed by this board?
To the administration, would you like Namada to come up, Commissioner Cornelius?
It can be Namada, it could be the proposers, they're standing before us. On June 9th, were oral presentations given by the 2 proposers?
The format of the oral presentations was the answers that the committee had for them to clarify questions based on their proposals.
Okay, I have an email dated Monday, June 9th, 2025 from Princess Brown in our Strategic Procurement Department stating, and I quote, "Good morning. Please be reminded that today's meeting is strictly for questions and answers as stated in the letter sent on June 4th, 2025. There will be no presentations." There were no oral presentations. You all turned it into a Q&A for whatever the reason that you all decided to do that, but that wasn't the directive of this board. The directive of this board was that oral presentations are mandated for contracts in excess of $25 million.
So you're absolutely right. 25 million annually, oral presentations are mandated. This contract is $77 million.
Okay.
For a 5-year. However, committee had questions based on the evaluation of the proposals, and the committee chose to ask those questions, and both proposers had to answer those questions.
Okay. Fair enough. Again, I'm walking through again how it is that we got here. After the scoring is complete, no oral presentations, incomplete information provided by Aetna, ultimately the score that was the final score was a highest ranking score for AVMED. Would everybody agree with that? There's no question on that, correct? They were the ones who won with all of our rules in place, including local preference. I understand that prior to the application of local preference, Aetna won. Once you applied local preference, which is our rules again that you are required to apply, again, we can pick times during the scoring process. If I want to pick a scoring number at the beginning of the process, it's going to be different than at the end. Local preference has to be applied by our rules. With the application of the local preference, AVMED wins, correct?
AVMED gets the opportunity to negotiate.
Okay, and that negotiation didn't take place because Gallagher steps in at this point. And this is where I really want to focus because I need Gallagher to approach and I need to understand why it is that Gallagher got involved in the first place. Scoring took place, a competitive procurement process is underway. Scores are finished and they're finalized. AVMED is the highest ranking bidder. There is a directive by our rules to negotiate with the highest ranking bidder, i.e. AVMED. But instead of that taking place, Gallagher gets involved. Is that correct? Gallagher gets involved at this point.
No.
And they have a different formulation of the pricing and the scoring in this competitive procurement. And when they were asked, how did you formulate this new scoring, i.e. the difference between the 502 and the 345, their response, our Gallagher, our actuarial professionals, their response was, it's proprietary. We are not sharing that information with you. Is that accurate, Namada?
No. So, number one, Gallagher has been our consultant for maybe 5-10 years. They are involved in a day-to-day analysis with the county in terms of our health plans, what we do, plan designs. They were involved in the drafting of the RFPs. So they were involved every step of the way from day one, similar to what Aon does for the state of Florida. And Gallagher, when the proposals are received, Gallagher does an independent review of the proposals as our consultant because they are considered extension of staff at this point. And they look at the information that's provided. If the committee has any questions, Gallagher being the expert, they answer questions. And that has been their involvement throughout the whole process in this RFP and the prior RFPs too.
I understand that, but Gallagher gets involved after a competitive selection committee and full procurement process takes place. Scoring is already done. I'm asking, why did Gallagher get involved? What was the need for Gallagher to get involved? Do we not trust our own procurement process?
Commissioner,
I'm not sure Gallagher.
No, 1 second. Commissioner, would it be helpful if we were to call someone from Gallagher up
Yeah,
to the podium? Is someone here from Gallagher?
So
No, please, 1 second, please. Is there a representative from Gallagher here? The commissioner has laid out an excellent point here, and it's appropriate that Gallagher answers this question, I believe.
Barbara Crow with Gallagher Benefit Services.
Good morning, Barbara, and thank you for being here.
And then Janet.
Again, after a full competitive procurement process takes place, including scoring by committee selection members, why did Gallagher get involved in this procurement?
Gallagher was involved from the beginning, as Namada had stated, with drafting the RFP and the process. We did not get involved and modify the scoring or insert ourselves in that area.
So then how did the 345 number come about? How did the differential come out? That was the source of why we're all here today. It was your opinion that came in after the competitive selection committee and scoring process that triggered a differential in the numbers, because the number that Aetna submitted was $502 million, and the number that AVMED submitted was $426 million.
I think what you're referring to is the repricing files, and that was part of our analysis that was submitted to the committee for their scoring. So that was done before they scored, and that is the same analysis that Aon has done.
Okay, and again, so my question is, so it's not the case that Gallagher got involved after the selection committee and procurement process and said, wait a minute, there is a different number here that is to be attributed to Aetna versus AVMED?
correct. Those numbers were presented prior to scoring.
Okay, can I have somebody from Mr. Llorente? Because during your presentation, you had a number of slides. The one that caught my attention, and Gallagher, if you don't mind remaining at the podium, I would appreciate it. The slide where you had the $502 million, which it's my understanding that that was the number submitted by Aetna during the RFP process. And Gallagher came in and said, their number's not actually $502 million. Their number's actually $345 million. And I see Mr. Llorente nodding his head, and if my notes are accurate, you called it a price swap. I'm trying to understand why that price swap took place to begin with. Why did that process happen at all? Because it's my understanding that it wasn't included in the RFP. It's not as though our business community was told, after you submit numbers that we're requesting and we're going to score you and we're going to have a completely competitive analysis done, our consultants are going to come in and reevaluate your points, and then you're going to be scored on the reevaluation of the points done by our internal consultant. So I'm trying to get to the bottom of how it is and why it is that Gallagher came in and did this price swap after the RFP process took place. And you're saying it didn't happen after the RFP process took place. Mr. Llorente, is that your understanding? It didn't happen after the RFP process took place?
So, Commissioner, with your permission, I'll go back to before the RFP, before the proposals were even submitted. It was published in the RFP that Gallagher would have a role in analyzing the financial information provided by the proposers. It was indicated in the RFP that that analysis was going to use a confidential and proprietary methodology. We registered an objection saying price evaluation should be transparent, and we objected to the use of any proprietary methodology to analyze the price. The county issued another addendum and essentially said, well, we didn't quite mean proprietary, but it will still be confidential. I'm not sure whether there was much of a difference there. At some point, what is clear is that Gallagher conducted its own analysis and submitted that analysis either to the committee, to the county, and there was at some point a price swap. When that happened, we do not know. The first time we saw the Gallagher analysis was after, I think after the recommendation was made. We did not see it certainly prior to the committee's recommendation. We did not see that analysis. And to date, we still don't know what Gallagher used, what assumptions it used, how it arrived at those numbers. We have major issues with that analysis, but it was conducted in a black box, which goes back to our original objection before the proposals were even submitted, that some outside party was going to come in and make adjustments to the pricing using a methodology that was not known to the bidders. And so that's how we end up in Gallagher's analysis with a 65.6% discount rate when we know that our actual discount rate is considerably higher. Commissioner, and that is what created the $40 million difference. It's all about the difference in discount rates. We don't know how or why or when Gallagher applied this discount rate. What we know is that it is wrong, and that at some point, that is the number the county latched onto to claim $45 million in savings.
Thank you for that explanation. Gallagher, is there anything that you dispute in what he just articulated?
Yeah, I'm going to turn it over to Janet, which is one of our actuaries. We did have 3 actuaries involved in this also, which I'm sure it'll be very similar to Aon's presentation, but thank you.
And while we make that transition, if we can get everyone to please pay attention to both the commissioner and the speakers. It's getting a little bit loud in here, so please calm down. Thank you.
Yeah, my question is just to you, is there anything that you have dispute in what Mr. Llorente just described?
Yes, our methodology, we tried to break it down to a very straightforward, fact-based methodology. So when you take a look at the projections that I believe that you're referring to, the Aetna's $502 million compared to AVMED's $426, the nature of a projection is to start with the factual claim base and from there apply assumptions to get up to the numbers. We could not validate the assumptions that were used. Both companies provided their own methodology. Some were conservative, some were aggressive, to move from a 23 claim base to a 26 projected base. Rather than rely on testing the assumptions we couldn't verify, we wanted to stick with just the facts And so from that, we relied on 1.5 million records of claims that the employees actually utilized in 23. We asked each of the vendors to reprice those claims how they would have repriced them, and that is what we used for the claim base. We did not apply any assumptions. We did not test any of the assumptions because we are not in the process of determining who can use better assumptions to predict the future. We just wanted to base it on claims. And when we take a look at how the actual experience came in, the $365 million in claims that they mentioned, that is true. Those are just medical claims. But that cannot be compared to the 502 because, I'm sorry. We just wanted to stick with the actual claim base.
So to be clear, that data was submitted with the RFP, and in the first meeting with the selection committee, there was a presentation shared with them that went over all of that data and the discounts that were being applied, et cetera. All we did was take their actual data and roll it up from the repricing files. We do not manipulate it, we do not modify it.
Okay, and thank you for that explanation. And so we have a procurement where two numbers are submitted by two companies, and our consultant says to both of the companies, actually your numbers are quite a bit different than what you proposed. Your numbers are significantly lower based on the analysis that you just provided, and it brings us here today. I want to know about the 65% versus the 69% because everybody is focused on saving money. And the data points that we use in order to calculate those numbers become critically important in determining whether or not there is an actual cost saving. So from Gallagher, and I'd appreciate Aon as well, I'm very interested in the data that you used in order to get to your numbers, whether or not your price swap was appropriate or not. I'm moving past that point because just from a fairness perspective, I'm not sure when you ask companies to provide a price and they provide that price, whether we should have our private consultants come in and manipulate those numbers in any way. But setting that issue aside entirely, I'm interested in whether or not you and Aon are confirming or denying whether or not the discount rate that you applied to AVMED is at the 65% or at the 69%, because that seems to have a direct and a consequential impact in everyone's calculation. And I don't understand why AVMED, our provider that's been doing great service here at the county for many, many years, would not be aware, stand on, and in fact come to the podium and guarantee a 69.9% discount rate, why our internal consultants and outside consultants that are independent would come up with a 65% discount rate, yet lending a price gap that conveniently just squares both of them off and lands the other one catapulted ahead. Help me understand that discrepancy.
I can kind of start. So the repricing files, as we said, are about 1.5 million, 1.35 or 1.5 million in records that go out, and each line is repriced. That data is taken and it's simply rolled up. We don't manipulate it, we don't change it, we don't modify it. It's their actual data that they submitted within the RFP process. In that data is where we came up with those numbers, but I'll let you explain a little bit further.
Yes, each claim line item indicates who the provider is, what network they're in, and what the billed charge is, and then they apply their own network discounts. We don't apply the network discounts.
Okay.
It's line by line, each claim, how each vendor repriced it based upon their discounts.
And to the speakers, really quickly, Commissioner, to the speakers, the microphone is your friend. It's your friend. I promise you, it's not going to bite back. It's your friend. It's your friend.
So it is not us doing anything to their data. It's their data. All we did was roll the data up, and that's what the numbers show.
Okay, 65%, not 69.9%?
Correct.
Okay, and to AVMED, how do we reconcile this discrepancy that really makes a difference in this analysis today? I mean, I don't understand. And to the point of my colleagues, we have two independent, and Commissioner, former Chairman Gilbert is absolutely right. We should pay attention to the outside independent consultants. I'm moved by your argument that their assumptions are wrong, and so their numbers are wrong. How do we reconcile your 69.9% with their 65%?
So Commissioner, and I'll ask Eric, who's our chief actuary, to dive, to help me out here. But the short answer is we don't know. We cannot reconcile those numbers. We cannot. The 65.6% or the 66% number doesn't square off with our actual discounts in 2023 or today. 3 months ago, we submitted a report to the county showing our actual real discounts in 2024 at 69.9%. So we cannot, the numbers don't square. And one final point I'll mention is that, our actual, as I mentioned earlier, our actual costs in 2023 were around $365 million using our actual discount rates back then, okay? $365 million. This analysis shows that the county would have paid in medical claims through AVMED over $400 million. The county did not pay over $400 million. The county paid $365, which actually aligns with the 69% number, not the 65. So, the benefit the county has in dealing with AVMED is that this is not a theoretical exercise. We have the benefit of using real numbers. And so you ask, how can the 65 be reconciled with the 69? The short answer is the numbers cannot be reconciled. And if you just go into your own books, you can confirm that the actual numbers, the real claims paid, the truth, lies in the 69% number and not in the 65. I don't know, Eric, if you have anything else to add.
I think it's well summarized. I think they mentioned they're trying to make this a fact-based exercise. No assumptions, get rid of anything that could drive any variability. The fact is we have a 69.9 in 2025. So that is the best information they have to react to. The fact that they didn't take their analysis, which I've already called out why I think it's flawed, not to say that they're not capable. I think it's a misunderstanding of what was represented there. But when they realized that there was a 4.5%, 5% differential in what is a fact and what is put into their analysis, questions should have been asked, and they were not.
Okay.
I think we could have clarified at that point.
Thank you for that. To Gallagher, would you agree that if the number that is accurate and applicable to AVMED is at 69.9%, that it changes your cost savings analysis? Would you just agree with that? Would you agree that if the number attributed to the discount rates that are on average for AVMED is actually 69.9% as opposed to 65%, that your cost savings analysis would change?
You want that from Gallagher or Aon?
Both.
I'm Aon, so.
Both, please,
Okay,
from
so
Gallagher
I
and
think I
from
go
Aon.
first. I mean, I think I would agree with his statement of not being able to connect the dots between the 69% and the 65-ish%. And I can say, theoretically, whether it's here or anywhere else, public sector in the state of Florida, standard practice of comparing carriers is to use the repricing data because it is the most fair way to compare apples to apples of what we have. And it's honestly a very simplistic process. We look at the billed claims versus the allowed claims, and then we back into what that discount is. So we're not creating any discount.
No, I understand. And you're looking at repricing data from the calendar year of 2023, correct?
And to clarify on that, yes, that was the basis data, but on our separate calls that we had with each of the carriers during our week of analysis, they both confirmed that they were on a prospective basis, meaning on a 2026 basis. So that was different. It wasn't just literally 23. That was the basis of claims, but it was on a projected basis to 26.
Okay, so the question remains.
Yes.
Would you agree, as Aon, that if the discount rate for AVMED were 69.9%, that it would change the cost savings analysis?
If we saw that in the repriced claims, yes, it would change the savings.
And Gallagher, is the response the same? The same question. What is the response to the same question?
Yes,
It would be a lower savings, but there still is a savings because it would be 69 versus Aetna 71%.
I understand, but it would change the cost savings analysis that is before this board currently because your cost savings analysis is based on a 65% discount rate where AVMED is representing that their data through and through, and they're attesting to it, is at 69.9%. The cost savings would drop dramatically, correct?
Correct, but we based our data on the data that they submitted, which represented a 65%.
I want to talk about the savings, which again is the reason why everybody is going with Aetna, and I would agree. I mean, if we're going to save money, let's absolutely go with who can save us the $40 or $45 million. And my colleague Commissioner Gonzalez went into this line of questioning, and he was assured time again that there are guarantees. And I understand, as Commissioner Regalado stated, this is looking into a crystal ball. So I think everybody understands that all of this is based on projections. And I believe that Commissioner Gonzalez asked, what is the, put your money where your mouth is, that sort of thing, because our decision is being made on savings. You're both extraordinarily capable companies. Nobody has any issue with services, to the exclusion of Commissioner Regalado's point, which I think was an excellent one. We need to revisit some of the coverages that we will decide as a board. I'm happy to engage in that conversation as quickly as she would like to, but these are two extraordinarily capable companies. This is boiling down to a decision on price. And so here's my concern. When we have had a provider as long as we've had, where no complaints from our 30,000 employees, everybody's happy, and we're making a decision as a body in a rushed manner based on $40 million of savings 1 year, because we don't have cost projections moving into year 2, 3, 4, and 5. We're making a $4 billion contractual decision based on $40 million of perceived and probable savings. I need more. I just need more because of the disruption, the change, the process of changing from AVMED to Aetna. And so I understand that there are discount rate guarantees built into this contract. I understand that there are a number of discount rate guarantees. But isn't your discount rate to Aetna essentially the same discount rate of AVMED? Meaning your discount rate is at 73%. I see you shaking your head no. Your discount rate is at 73%. Their discount rate is, or you said 71, theirs is at 69.9%. We're talking about a discount rate of less than 2 points here. If we're taking everybody at their word, AVMED says our discount rate is 69.9. Aetna is saying our discount rate is at 71. Am I accurate?
If I may clarify, Madam Commissioner, so our most recent actual discount rate was 69.9%. The discount guarantee that we offered the county in connection with this procurement was 73% with a 2% corridor.
Okay.
Which is very much in line with the discount guarantee being offered to this body today. So there's very little, if any, savings.
I understand. So the discount rate that is actual, and most time based on data that is actual, because you're currently providing the service to our county employees, is at 69.9, but you're guaranteeing 73%. Aetna, what is the discount rate that you are guaranteeing?
We're guaranteeing 73% because we're achieving 73%. We are giving a 1% corridor, they have a 2% corridor. So what that means, that 73 really turns out to 71. Our 73 turns out to 72 to put us on the level playing field. You also asked if we agreed with the consultant's analysis, and we have not had an opportunity to give our response. We agree with their analysis. We absolutely disagree with AVMED's assumption. The roll-up of their repricing is 65.6. If they're achieving 69, that repricing should have said that. So it's all about the RFP, what was submitted in that RFP. If their numbers were different, then maybe there's a flaw in the numbers. But the results are very clear what's in the roll-up of that repricing.
To Aetna, what is the, and I appreciate the comment that you just made. It's all about the RFP and it's all about the numbers that were provided in the RFP. What was your number provided in the RFP, Aetna? To Aetna, what was the number that you provided as a response on the cost that you can provide to this county? What was the number that you provided?
For the projected cost, we had for 2026, $502 million.
And what was Aetna's number according to the RFP?
What was
AVMED's number?
So that was the projection number. The other number that's being quoted was from the repricing exercises, which is 9 months and excludes capitation cost.
No, no, no. I understand. I understand that the numbers got manipulated, not manipulated, recalculated, recalibrated, recapitated, all of that stuff happened. Your representative stood at the podium, said it's all about the RFP. Look at the numbers that were submitted at the RFP. At the RFP level, the numbers that were submitted by Aetna were $502 million. The numbers that were submitted by AVMED was $426 million.
It's actually a little bit higher than that for AVMED, and if I may, a little bit of charged language saying price swap, I would disagree strongly with that because it's not a price swap. There were two different numbers that are provided. There is a projection number, which is what we've been discussing shortly, and that is a black box because we don't know how AVMED came up with that number, and until this morning when I made the presentation, we didn't know how Aetna came up with that number. The repricing is the verifiable, vetted, evidence-based documentation of what any one of us say. That was based on 2023 claims, and each vendor fills in the box. They fill in the box with what they believe that their discounts will be in 26. AVMED's had the case for 10 years. They should be very confident with those results. So much so that when they submitted the original discount guarantee, their discount guarantee was 67%. Before the results of Gallagher came out, lo and behold, Gallagher's initial results were about 65.6. So they aligned up with that original pricing. Now their numbers moved up, obviously because they've seen all the information, but they believed that they were going to come in at 67. That's why they promised 67 in their initial response. Our initial response was 71, which was backed up by 70. That was backed up by not just Gallagher, but the second independent professional opinion.
Okay, thank you for that explanation. The last point that I want to go over is excluded coverage, because it's my understanding that your discount rates, which the way that I see it sitting before both, based on the testimony that I've heard so far, discount rates for me are exactly the same. You're at 73%. That's what you're both guaranteeing for claims moving forward. So if I get injured and I get sick and I go to the doctor and it's in network or out network or whatever those details may be, I'm going to have the benefit, as will every other county employee, whether we go with AVMED or Aetna, of a 73% discount rate with these providers. Is that correct? Everybody's on the same page, right?
There's a corridor.
With the corridor. My question is exclusions to Aetna. Does that 73% discount rate apply to our seniors, 65 and older, and does it apply to claims in excess of $100,000?
It does apply to all. So it does apply to the seniors, and it applies to our entire national network. The $100,000 is the discount guarantee calculation, which AVMED has the same number that you have is in the RFP.
Okay, and
It's in there. It looks the same.
And to the over 65, just to comment on that, yes, it is an exclusion. But to be very clear,
Wait. It is an exclusion? Because she just said it's not an exclusion.
It's the Medicare.
The exclusion has to do with the records that did not have TINs and PINs. They know the TINs and PINs. We don't know the TINs and PINs. TINs and PINs are provider identifiers. So when Gallagher or Aon said there were 6,000 records excluded from our repricing, that's because we didn't know who those doctors were. Without those numbers, we couldn't validate a Mario Garcia to be the same as 10 Mario Garcias. So those were the 6,000 excluded. That's what excluded means when Aon or Gallagher made the comment excluded.
To AVMED, are there excluded claims that are included in your option that are not included in Aetna's option? As far as coverage and whether you call it claims or bills, are there exclusions that differentiate your option over Aetna's?
They're not.
There are no
The
exclusions.
are identical.
The discount rate applies to all claims, even those in excess of $100,000 and even those over 65.
To be clear, there are exclusions. They are no different than the exclusions that Aetna has.
Got it. Okay. And thank you for clarifying that. So I see a situation where we have guaranteed rates that are exactly the same, exclusions and coverage that are exactly the same between both providers, and a procurement process that I think I agree on whoever said that it was flawed. I think the procurement process was flawed. And we've sat at this dais before where contracts that are a fraction of this size, when we hear that there's not an oral presentation, we say go back and do oral presentations. When we see that there's an issue in the procurement, we say go back and do something right, because we want our procurement process to be trusted by the business community and by the residents of Miami-Dade County. It is extraordinarily unique for me, having been sitting on this dais for 5 years, to have a procurement of this size take place and have, after submission of bids, any consultant, whether it's ours or an outside consultant, come in and influence the pricing and the outcome of the procurement process the way that the consultants have in this case. But I do think, and I'm very aware of the fact that we are very constrained on time. Open enrollment starts in a month, and so essentially a decision has to be made today. I don't have any further questions, but I thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the floor.
Thank you, Commissioner. And just for the record, because they asked me to put on the record, I've got an official letter from our tax collector, Dario Fernandez, in support of Aetna. And I've got a message from our elections department in support of Aetna, from our Alina Garcia. And both wanted me to put it on the record. With that, okay, we got an order, but I'm gonna have the vice chair has a question just to clarify on a comment, Commissioner Cohen-Higgins.
Thank you. Commissioner Cohen-Higgins, let me ask you this question. You made reference to a 6,000 number of exclusion. Do we know what that number equates to if that was given to us in the form of savings or a percentage?
I guess
Through the chair.
One of the providers. There was. She brought up a great point about what was excluded and what was not, and I believe it was representation from the podium that the numbers were somewhere around 6,000, which means that 6,000 people, 6,000 claims or bills were not adjusted and/or incorporated into the final scheme. If so, is there a number attached to that 6,000 that we heard from this side of the podium, but we also heard that this side of the podium did not exclude it? I'll put it in a more positive term that AVMED included that 6,000 while Aetna did not.
And I think who brought that point up was actually Aon, so I think that's why she came to the podium.
Right, exactly. So it's actually $6 million worth of claims, not 6,000 claims. Just to clarify the 6,000, it's actually 6 million of claims. So just generically speaking, what's applying here is something that's very common, where the incumbent does not have excluded claims because all of their coding matches their coding. So when they're repricing, they know exactly what that coding is. So it's pretty typical when you have a non-incumbent carrier bidding on something that there's going to be some portion of the claims, but typically a small percentage, as this is a small percentage. 6 million is a big number, but of a very large number. That you're going to have a portion that's excluded initially. And it's purely because, and Aetna would be the one to really give you the detailed explanation of why they were excluded, but it's typically a coding situation where it's just apples and oranges when they are trying to translate what a claim is between the incumbent line items versus their own. So, but to be very clear, the $6 million was not excluded from our analysis. What we did was we took that total aggregate top line dollar amount of $6 million and we applied a conservative 68% discount, so not this 70+ percentage that Aetna has on other claims. We did a conservative 68% for that $6 million, so that we're including just over $4 million of claims in the medical claims provided in our analysis. So when we're talking about the $45.5 million of savings, that is including just over $4 million of the $6 million excluded within the analysis.
Thank you. And I understood that the first time, which is why I clarified if you didn't want to take that into account, it'll still show 40 million.
Exactly. I mean, it's a number, but in comparison to what we're discussing, the story would not change even if we excluded it completely.
Okay. All right. So I've got on queue. Thank you for that. I've got on queue Gonzalez, Senator Garcia, Gilbert, and then I think You had raised your hand way earlier. You've been very patient. So Commissioner Orbis, then Gonzalez, Garcia, Gilbert, Regalado. You first. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. So I agree with many of my colleagues, and like many of you, this decision has weighed very heavily on me personally, not only because I've been with AVMED for almost 20 years as a county employee, but also because of the many phone calls that we received, the many concerns we've received, and the fact that sometimes things sound too good to be true. So I had a few questions for the administration, or maybe Namita has I'll wait for you if you want to come up. The cost of implementation as far as informs, has that been accounted into this cost savings? Do you know how much it'll cost to implement it through informs and what that will look like?
I mean, there might be some programmatic changes, but cost is not too excessive. It's very minimal.
And is informs ready for the change? Is there anyone here that can speak on behalf of informs?
Through the chair, Commissioner, so we have a team that's been working diligently to make sure that we're ready for programming depending on the decision that is made. Whether it's Aetna or AVMED, we still have to reprogram. And so the team is on the standby, waiting to do the work that needs to be done. And the reason I say that is because both parties are submitting new proposals, new plans. So whether it's the new plan of Aetna or the new plan of AVMED, we have to do the programming to ensure those rates that we're talking about, those claimed rates and new provider networks are programmed into the system.
But have we heard from the informs team as far internally if they are capable or ready to take on this change and what that would look like for them? Have we taken into account the manpower and the cost that it will take to cross over?
Commissioner, yes.
Can you expand on that, Namita?
If you don't
Do you have
mind,
an actual cost of that, what that will be?
if you don't mind, Commissioner, through the chair, I'll have, if Ophelia is still here, she oversees the informs team. She can speak to that specifically.
Thank you.
Please, you're recognized for an ebb and flowing conversation with Commissioner Orbis. And please introduce yourself again.
Ophelia Tamayo, Internal Compliance Department Director. Yes, we are prepared. We are waiting a decision by this body on who the provider is, and the team is ready in conjunction, not just the Office of Enterprise Strategies, but also our IT department and also our business partners in PIOD, the HR team. We are ready.
And do you foresee it being a smooth transition, or do you foresee glitches as you transfer?
It will be very time sensitive, but we are prepared to get it done.
Okay, thank you. So Namita, I know that we talked about the providers being available to the employees. How soon can you have those, assuming that the change is done, how soon can the employees have access to the provider list and all the information that would help them figure out if they are fully covered?
Definitely. Should the board approve the item, I do know there is a pending injunction, but of course we're going to execute the contract. The transition team is ready to make sure employees have the information as soon as possible. If we have to deploy Aetna's team in different buildings of the county to go there or have set up a hotline, everything is going to be done. The moment we have the decision, we'll start working on the transition plan, so it is as smooth as possible for employees.
So you're not waiting until, if a decision is made today, you're not waiting until after open enrollment?
No, we start the day the decision is made. We at least start, there already a transition plan that we're working on, and it's going to be ready to go the moment we have the decision.
Okay, and as far as the nationwide coverage, I know we spoke about that when we met, and you mentioned that the bargaining units, you have to wait until the decision is made. How about the exempt employees? When would they have access to that? When could you consider them having access to the nationwide coverage?
We get access to the nationwide coverage when the contract starts, which is January 1st. We have access as employees, everybody. It's just that the way the county has is the 4 different plans today that are part of the bargaining agreement, and you can't just say, okay, our 4 plans are going away, I'm gonna just give you 1 plan. So that part has to be done throughout the bargaining agreement process. But people employees like me and all of you here and our families will have access to national network.
And through the chair, just to clarify, the contract, the procurement we're doing is for administrative services. So the administrative services contract will begin upon execution. What NAMDA referred to as January 1st is when the actual transition of the benefits structure would occur based on open enrollment. So at open enrollment, employees will have options, and depending on the option they choose, right, then they will have access to those benefits on January 1st. So if someone chooses the Aetna product that includes all of the network, then that would begin on January 1st. If they choose the Jackson First, then they'll have the Jackson First. But as Aetna said, even if they choose Jackson First and they end up going out of network, Aetna has relationships with many of those providers.
Okay, thank you. I would also suggest, and I know that I told you this, Namita, to take a proactive approach and not wait until employees are surprised if we do have a change today, to let them know, to have a proactive search of their doctors, and if there's a way that we can work on figuring out if all their doctors are included now and not wait until something happens on January 1st as an emergency and you're not covered, or you figure that out at the last hour.
Absolutely, Commissioner. That will be part of our transition plan, that employees are informed, and if they have questions, concerns about specific doctors, we will have the team available to answer. And we have been answering on anybody who's coming to us and saying, can you check our doctors are covered or not covered? We have been going back to Aetna, and I haven't found any case where Aetna has come back and said it's not covered. So I think we can do that proactively right away when the decision is made. We can start making sure employees are informed.
Thank you. And again, this is a difficult decision, as I know it is for the rest of my colleagues. And like I said, it's weighed heavily on me. And what I always continue to arrive at is doing the best thing for our employees and also our residents, right? So making a decision that will save us money. It is a tough decision, but I hope that we are doing right by our employees going forward and our residents. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Are you up next, Commissioner Gonzalez?
Yes, sir, Mr. Vice Chair.
Thank you.
I'm going to be very clear because I need to be clear. I've said this in private, and I'm going to say it in public. I've told AVMED this. I've told Aetna this. I've told NAMDA this. I've told the administration this. All of this could have been avoided. All of it could have been avoided. And what I'm seeing, and the frustration that I have, and the frustration that the employees that have been blowing up my phone have, is a lack of trust. The employees don't trust the administration. I don't trust the mayor, and I want to trust the mayor. The people don't trust the administration or the mayor. We need to make things clear. So when some people say theatrics, I say clarity. The reason we had to have this is to make sure that the folks at home and the employees that are going to be affected understand that, hey, maybe Aetna is the best thing that could have possibly happened to you. And we could have handled this so much differently. Putting it on the last minute, this is not the first time that this happens, and I'm tired of it. And that's why this is so difficult. The difficulty is trusting that the numbers are real. So I want to thank Commissioner Cohen-Higgins for going through her line of questioning, Commissioner McGee for going through his line of questioning. And if we got to be here till 8 o'clock at night so that everybody at home feels good about this and understands what they're getting, then that's what we're going to do. Commissioner Regalado made excellent points to Aetna. Can you guarantee that somebody that has cancer or has a chronic disease, that their medical treatment is not going to be interrupted? Can you guarantee that? Can you say that on the record, please?
And through the chair, I definitely want to hear Aetna's answer.
Can I get that response, please?
we can guarantee that that they will continue with their current provider through their care.
You can. And if my wife is pregnant and she's about to have a baby and she has an OBGYN that she's been dealing with for 9 months and she's about to have a baby, but like Commissioner Regalado stated earlier, that doctor falls in the 0.1% and is not covered. Is she going to have that doctor deliver her baby?
Yes.
That's guaranteed. It's guaranteed?
Yes.
Guaranteed.
Yes.
Can you tell us why it's guaranteed? Because the folks at home, the employees of Miami-Dade County, really want to know.
Why it's guaranteed?
Yes, tell us why it's guaranteed. Tell us what you guys do specifically, and so that it's guaranteed.
Hold on, the commissioner's talking. Go ahead, Commissioner.
Commissioner. So let's just, this is important. Let's just tone it down a little bit, because what I think is important, and I know it's important to you, Commissioner Gonzalez, and to everybody on this dais, is that we get the real answers on the record, in writing, contractually, so that the beneficiaries of this, our employees,
are comfortable
and secured, and know that there will be no gap, no lapse in coverage, that they'll still be able to maintain. So I understand the point. Just so the passion comes from a good place. Just, and I know you sort of alluded to this earlier, but if you can clarify for the commissioner his question.
Commissioner, thank you for the question. I think it's important that you ask this question, so it's not personal. Don't just take our word for it that transition of care will happen for anyone who's in active treatment, but this is a state statute by law. If it were AVMED, if it's Aetna, if it's Cigna, we are bound by law to make sure that people are taken care of during the active treatment, your wife's pregnancy, someone who's being treated for cancer by chemo. We've grandfathered certain drugs. We've thought the process through, but we're also held by state statute to make sure we honor people who are in transition of care of an active treatment.
And for example, what if my child uses a nebulizer and she needs a nebulizer to sleep, right? What if AVMED doesn't cover that nebulizer? What would happen then?
Once again, that's a DME product. We will ensure, if your daughter has a nebulizer and is currently using one, more often than not, you're not going to need a new one. It'll be there. But depending on how the contract is with your incumbent, if it's been rented, then we would send you out a new nebulizer under our agreement. If it's already paid for, you would continue to use it. It just depends on how the setup is under your incumbent and how it is set up under Aetna. But there will be no gap in coverage because you went from AVMED or you went to Aetna.
So folks at home can rest assured, all of the employees of Miami-Dade County can rest assured that even if we were to decide today to go with a different provider, because it's hard to go with a different provider. It's hard to hear that you've been having the same insurer for many years and they've always been there for you, and you're happy with what you're getting. It's hard to hear, hey, the mayor wants to save money, so we're gonna change. And that's not what's happening. What's happening is this is perhaps better, correct?
It is hard to hear about change at times, but what I'd like to offer to the council is change can be hard, but change can also be good, because you're going to get an increased network. So let's say if you have active treatment, cancer, or if you want second opinion and you want to go to New York to some of the best doctors to get a second opinion, or if you want to go to DC or you want to go to somewhere else because you want to have more choice in your healthcare decisions and treatment, you have that with Aetna. So while change is hard, change can also be good.
That's a great point. So for example, if my daughter is 19 years old and she goes to school in Boston, right? Can she get a doctor in Boston without any problem?
Absolutely. That would be the national network. And like we say, one of the administrative hassles you would no longer have is enrolling in a separate plan because you now have a college student. You show up in Boston, you worry about moving your daughter into the dorm, and you let us worry about providing the coverage. She can show up with her Aetna card, and she can have access, or he. But that is what we bring to the table. the depth and the breadth of our network, and the reassurance that we've done this time and time again, and we'll do it for the employees of Dade County as well.
Thank you. And to AVMED, if I can get somebody from AVMED to come up here, right? Because I've gotten calls from retirees that are very, very upset that they're hearing rumors that they're going to be kicked off Medicare, right? So are you going to leave the folks that are retired that have Medicare? Are you going to leave them out in the dust? Because if you're willing to do that for them, what are you going to do for the employees of Miami-Dade County? Can you explain that? These are the questions that folks want answered.
Yes, Commissioner Candy Sickle, I'm Vice President of Sales with AVMED. So we are not leaving any retirees out in the cold. AVMED has made a decision that we will not be participating in Medicare in 2026. However, today, in your contract, the administrator that provides all the services for the retiree and administers that is Retiree First. That continues in 26 if you stay with AVMED. You have 77% of your post-65 retirees enrolled in a Med-Sub plan. That Med-Sub plan is not going away. Now, the ones that are enrolled, 22% that are enrolled in the Medicare Advantage prescription drug plan that we will not be offering, will not be left to hang because they will have Retiree First helping them find the plan that best meets their needs. And as a matter of fact, all Medicare Advantage plans, all Medicare beneficiaries will be subject to changes in their benefits and in their networks for 2026. That is not exclusive to AVMED. Those plan designs will come out on October 1st when annual enrollment period begins, and every Medicare beneficiary is subject to those changes.
Thank you for that answer. Now, Aetna, what are you folks going to do for our great retirees? Can they rest assured that they're going to keep their Medicare benefits?
Well, it sounds like under your incumbent that you won't have what you have today. You'll have something new. But under Aetna, we've guaranteed that we'll provide what you have today and even more. That is what was asked of us, and that is what we're providing.
And so my whole point here, my whole point here is that the only thing that Commissioner Cohen-Higgins and many of us on this dais have been trying to do is just exercise transparency for the folks at home. They want to make sure that if they are going to give up the insurance that they love and has helped them for years, that it's going to be worth it. I don't want another informs issue. I don't want another transition of the light sequency issue, because what it means is the health and well-being of the residents of Miami-Dade County. And what they want to know is, hey, if you guys are going to get the savings, is it worth it? And when we put it at the last hour and we don't have these conversations and we don't explain these things to our employees, then they get worried for no reason. We could have avoided this.
Well,
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I'll close with this.
Chairman,
I think the savings will be worth it. I know the service will be worth it.
Give me, come on, guys, give me 1 second.
We did officially lose quorum. Oh, we have one there? Oh, okay. All right, so going to... Oh, sorry, they're hiding. Oh,
Well, then we're
okay,
gonna
no, we
wrap
have
this
quorum.
up while
If
you
I
have
can,
quorum.
So, okay, sorry, because I was trying to do quorum call, but you're good, right? Senator Garcia, did you...
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And if I may, and I appreciate the passion and I appreciate us wanting so much transparency over this issue. I just wish every issue we brought to the county commission will be this transparent. I'll tell you, in the urge of transparency, we asked for a third party to come in and verify the numbers. They verified the numbers. They did what we asked. We wanted to make sure the numbers are correct. Okay, now we're saying 69 to 71%. There's still a savings on this side. There's still discounts. There's still more discounts on the Aetna side than there is on the AVMED side. No one is criticizing what AVMED has done through so many years. We thank AVMED for the work that they've done. They've been an amazing provider to this community. They've been an amazing provider to us. But just because they've been here for 50 years doesn't mean that they should be here for another 50 years. We see what Aetna has done. Aetna has been able to provide, and for me, and I start off, when I made my motion to approve, it wasn't based just on numbers. It wasn't based on simply on a cheaper plan versus the more expensive plan. What I wanted to do is to make sure that the employees had a more robust network that they can tap into. That's what I was basing my decision on, and this is why I made the motion to go with Aetna, because of the robust nature of their plan. When we look at the retirees, I love when we get attorneys involved and they start talking about different numbers and quantifying this and quantifying that. At the end of the day, a lot of our retirees leave Miami-Dade County. They too will have access to more of a network outside of Miami-Dade County than what they have right now. This is a better solution for the employees of Miami-Dade County. And when we look at it, when you have your children or sons or daughters in other parts of the country, whether they're studying outside of the state of Florida, they have access to the national network that Aetna has. Yes, the numbers might be a little more skewed. The $40 may not be $40 million guaranteed savings, but they're saying it on the record. They're going to guarantee these savings. So this is why I have been pushing this forward, and I appreciate your passion. I appreciate what Commissioner Coague-Higgins, the questions they've been asking for. But there is no doubt, and actually, before I go there, you're right. The biggest problem that we have here is the way this was brought to us at the 11th hour. But because it was brought back to the 11th hour doesn't mean that we should kill it and move forward. We have something that works before us. And I look to the employees that are here. Look, and I'll tell you this right now, I don't use AVMED. I still have Florida Blue. So for me, it doesn't make a difference, whether it's AVMED or Aetna. I'm trying to figure out what is the best interest for the employees of Miami-Dade County. That's what I'm trying to do. So for me, my hands are clean. I don't care. What is the best interest for them? You know, the best interest is having a more robust network, folks. The more robust network that's going to save us a little bit less money maybe, but it's still going to save us money. That's what we're trying to argue about here. So for that reason, Mr. Chairman, I do ask that I call the previous question, move the item forward, and let's take this to a vote.
All right, so I still have Gilbert on, but if you're okay with calling the question, I'm good with it. You do need to say something? Okay, so the Vice Chair wants to say something, so at that point, do you want to?
If we're not going to go to question, I have very brief comments, though. Very, very brief comments, Mr. Chairman, if I'm in line.
You are in line. And then if that's okay, I'll call a question after the Vice Chair.
I understand somewhat the passion. Let me just say, I don't distrust the mayor or the administration. At times, I just think they're wrong. And I reserve the right to think they're wrong sometimes and the right to think they're right sometimes. And this time, I think they're right. I don't have to be a genius to figure out they're right. We hired 2 consultants to confirm what they were saying. But even from a more personal perspective, like Senator Garcia, I too have different coverages. And so ironically, I have a daughter who's in college at FAMU. I put her on Aetna's plan through Miami Gardens and not AVMED. And I love AVMED, but I put her on Aetna's plan. It's better for her. She's in Tallahassee. I have a son who's autistic like Commissioner Regalado. AVMED's been good to us. I can't, but Aetna, it's better. And their savings. Look, we're here and we're contorting ourselves. We're contorting ourselves to cling to what is familiar. That's what we're doing. We're going to do, it's like a pretzel. It's like that old game, Twister, where you got a one arm under one leg or something. You're doing the craziest things right now to say, hey, we're going to go against the 2 consultants, against the administration, against the recommendations for all of the constitutional officers and against the unions to say we want to stay where we are. Look, I appreciate that everyone keeps saying this is a difficult decision. I've been making decisions for a long time. This is not a difficult decision. This is just a big decision. But the process, when you just run the process, just run the numbers, just run the facts, you just listen to the consultants. When everyone is saying one thing and the people who don't want to lose the business is saying something else, for AVMED to be right, everyone else has to be wrong. And I've seen a lot of stuff, but I just ain't seen that. I agree with Senator Garcia. We should vote, and regretfully, we should bid farewell to AVMED.
Vice Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And
I echo the sentiments of my colleagues, and I've sat here attentively listening and trying to make sense about all of these things. And I agree with my colleagues. To place us in this predicament when there was a process in place does speak to the change that needs to happen. In a sense, that change that needs to happen is we need to follow the process. The process here was flawed. We should have had more time to deal with this issue, as Commissioner Gonzalez brought up time and time again. But we're here now, right? And we can't walk away. We can't walk out on the vote. We have to deal with it head on. So then I went to my second analysis. How did we get here? At first, I thought we got here because there were individuals who were hiding numbers and changing the mathematical equations and giving us different options that were not found in true reason and sound reasoning. But then I went back to the book that I love to read, and it's called The Art of the Deal. That's the Trump book. In The Art of the Deal, one of the principles there was use your leverage. And in the book, there's a quote that says, "The worst thing you can possibly do in a deal is seem desperate to make it. That makes the other guy smell blood, and then you're dead. The best thing you can do is deal from strength, and leverage is the biggest strength you can have." AVMED has been here since 2008. AVMED made a decision, a conscious decision, that we've heard to not deal with the county in those 18 months of negotiation. That's what I heard from the administration. That's what the administration stated. AVMED had an opportunity to undo all of these things. We didn't have to be here. Aetna didn't take AVMED's contract. AVMED lost this contract. Why? Because AVMED made the conscious decision to deal from a place of strength, which is their leverage. And in the process, their leverage has cost them dearly. I didn't get bogged down in the numbers. I listened to the numbers. They are what they are. But we can all agree, if you had an opportunity to deal with the administration since 2008, and then this negotiation happened at least 18 months ago for negotiations, and you chose not to come to a deal with this county, it is not on us that you can blame for not being able to carry forth this contract. You should look at yourselves, because at this particular moment, I cannot feel sorry for AVMED. I cannot say that AVMED was taken advantage of. The only thing I can come back to is AVMED made a conscious decision to use its leverage, and its leverage came back void. For that reason, I am standing with Aetna on this one, because it is the right thing to do, and it is a costly business decision that I hope AVMED takes a lesson from and learn from in the near future. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I will be supporting this this item in favor of Aetna.
Okay, thank you, Vice Chair.
Call question.
And I'm gonna call a question. I would say I don't think it impacts the outcome or anybody, but I do see AVMED waiving, saying that the timelines of the negotiations were not accurate. But again, I don't know that that's impacts the decision, but I am going to call a question, because something that should have taken us probably 30 minutes today has taken a lot more time. So with that, clerk, please call the roll, and to verify or to make sure we're all on the same page, which I'm sure we are, is a yes vote means we are taking the administration's recommendation in doing a bid waiver and going with Aetna. A no vote means that dies, and then we're back discussing what option B is. So with that, clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Cohen Higgins.
I vote no.
Senator Garcia,
Aye.
Commissioner Gilbert, Commissioner Gonzalez,
No.
Commissioner Hardiman, Commissioner Milian Orbis, Commissioner Regalado,
Yes.
Vice Chairman McGee,
Yes.
Chairman Rodriguez.
I vote yes.
Motion passes 7-2.
Show the item passed.
Mr.
And
Chairman,
we're-
if I
we're not
may.
clapping. Yes,
Before-
Senator
before
Garcia,
you-
you're recognized.
Before you adjourn, July 16th meeting, I made an allocation of $67,700 to Sky Homes Sky Homes Improvement Inc., and it was supposed to be Sky Homes Improvement LLC. Can I show the record to reflect that change in order for us to proceed with the sidewalk improvement in my neighborhood, in my community, in my district?
It's embarrassing that you even have to say that on the record, but yes.
Yes, I had to say it in the record. Yes, I did.
Mr. Chair?
Commissioner Regalado.
Yeah. Wait. Commissioner Gilbert?
Guys, please exit quietly because the commission, we're not adjourned officially, so
We haven't adjourned.
please exit quietly.
Um,
Commissioner Regalado.
Today we had an opportunity to talk about how we determine the coverages. And I would like to work on an item that looks at our coverage specifically for neurodivergent individuals when we're talking about autism, but also dementia and Alzheimer's. Specifically, the fact that we do not cover sedation for dentistry, which I think for many families is debilitating and one of the biggest complaints that I get from our county employees. And also adult daycares for autistic adults and for people with dementia and Alzheimer's, where we know that we can save a lot more money having them in adult daycares than having them with at-home care. So I think there is a cost savings there if we were to change the paradigm, and we know that they live better and healthier. So I would like to have the opportunity to work on this item and bring it back to this board as soon as possible, and your support in not having it go through the whole protracted process so that we can hear from the administration what the cost would be and make a determination in our next meeting so that as part of the open enrollment, it is included, because we have gotten a lot of calls about that.
Perfect, thank you. And, all right, I agree. And then, real
We
quick,
direct the administration to do that, to
Yeah.
bring us the cost.
show it as a directive to the administration.
Through the chair, absolutely accept that directive. I cannot commit that we'll have something for open enrollment, but I can commit we'll come back with costs and
Yes.
how we could go about getting to your desired outcome.
Thank
Guys,
you.
quiet in the back, guys. We're still in session.
Mr. Chair.
Real quick.
If I may add to.
Yes, just give me 1 second so we could housekeeping stuff. Senator Garcia clarified the record on one of his allocations, but it needs an official vote, I'm being told by the attorneys. So it's been moved by him, seconded by Commissioner
Second.
Regalado. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. All right, that clarification is made. Commissioner Orbis.
Thank you. I wholeheartedly agree with Commissioner Regalado. I would also, in that, what you're bringing back to the board, I would like to see options for including IVF treatments for our employees. I'm shocked that that's not included, and I think it's something very necessary that we need to be offering our employees here in Miami-Dade County. So I would appreciate if you can also include that.
Is there a way actually to, because these looks like one-offs that people either know about because they have a personal situation. Can we have some sort of report as to what's not included that's a more than 0.5% of our, I don't know how to.
Through the chair, what we can do, and I have a list of things that people would like to see. I can do the cost implications of that. And then we can have a discussion, and I'm happy to meet with any of the commissioners individually to gather more insights and really kind of do a menu of options. The point is, I want to make it very clear, Miami-Dade County is the insurance provider. We pay for all of the benefits that are received. What the carrier does, the administrator, is help us manage those costs. So we ultimately decide what we want to spend and what we want to spend it on.
Agree, and I just want to say on the ones that I brought up, I can show you that there'll be a cost savings. Because if you help people with the sedation and they take care of their dental issues sooner rather than later, you're going to save money because you're ending up at the hospital. And then when they end up at the hospital to do the sedation, it costs 3 times as much. So what could be a $2,000 sedation bill is now a $15,000 sedation bill. The same with the adult daycare. You know, the at-home care that you're providing at that 27, an hour rate is a lot more than what it would cost to have them at an adult daycare. So I think that for those 2 coverages, there would be a savings to the county, and it would provide people with a lot more options. And if we're looking at everything, then, let's look at the behavioral also, because I know that there's a lot of concerns about the behavioral therapies that are being provided to autistic children and adults. Thank you.
All right, guys, show us adjourned.